Hey everybody. Today I decided I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to get started working with JavaScript. Throughout this course, we'll be working on a few projects you could add to your portfolio, which include, but are not limited to, a digital clock, a stopwatch, a functioning calculator, a game of rock, paper, scissors, an image slider, and our final project will be a weather app that fetches data from an API. If that sounds good to you, I encourage you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, if you don't mind, please give this video a like, post a random comment down below, and subscribe if you'd like to be a fellow bro. It doesn't cost you anything. Thank you. JavaScript is a programming language used to create dynamic and interactive web pages. JavaScript runs on a web browser such as Google Chrome, Safari, Edge, whatever you use to browse the internet basically. By using JavaScript, we can respond to user actions and transform user input whenever somebody interacts with our site. In this example, I have a calculator written with HTML. It's not very pretty, and it doesn't function. We have the framework that we need at least though. By applying CSS, we can add color and style to this calculator, but unfortunately it still doesn't function. By including JavaScript code, this calculator can perform actions, and is well, useful. So in this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know to get started working with JavaScript. I would recommend knowing HTML and CSS before starting the series. I do have a full free course on my channel if you're interested in learning those, or if you need a refresher. If you don't know either, you could probably still get by watching this video. I'll walk you through both as we go along throughout the series. Now, before we do begin, you will need a text editor. One text editor that I recommend is VS Code, which you can download from code.visualstudio.com. For a step-by-step instruction of how to install it, feel free to check out the HTML and CSS series. With that out of the way, let's dive right in. So what we'll need to do is create a new project folder. In VS Code, you can go to the left toolbar, go to Explore. We will open a folder. I'll place this folder on my desktop just for convenience. I will create a new folder, which I will name Website to contain my website files. Let's select this folder. And we are now within our website folder. We'll need 3 files, an HTML file, CSS file, and JavaScript file. We'll begin with the HTML file. We can close out of this welcome window. I will name my HTML file index.html. In a website, the index.html file is typically used as the homepage. We have our HTML file. Next comes the CSS file. Mine will be named style.css. The CSS style sheet is in charge of the overall appearance of the web page. This can include fonts, colors, positioning, stuff like that. Then lastly, we have the JavaScript file, which I will name index.js. The JavaScript file is in charge of the interactivity of a web page. So altogether, we have structure, style, and actions. So rearrange these tabs however you like. I switch back and forth between the JavaScript and HTML file quite often, so I tend to put them right next to each other, but do whatever's most convenient for you. So to generate the necessary text to create a web page in your HTML file, in VS Code, you can type exclamation point, then hit tab. So here you can change the title of your web page if you want. I'll change my title to be my website. And that's all we'll need for now. Now we'll need to link the style sheet to the HTML file. Now we are going to create a link tag. We can link an external style sheet to our HTML file. Within the link tag, there is a relationship attribute, shortened to REL. The relationship will be style sheet. We are linking a style sheet. Then the next attribute we need is the href attribute. Where is the CSS file located? Well, it's right next to each other. We only need the file name. So we are linking the CSS style sheet. Now our CSS style sheet is linked to our HTML file. Now we need to link the JavaScript file to our HTML file. We can do that by adding a pair of script tags. We will set the source attribute to be the name of the JavaScript file, index.js. Alright, everything should now be linked together. The last thing we'll need is the live server extension in VS Code. Go to extensions. We will search for live server. It should be this one. We are going to install this extension. So whenever we save any changes to our files, the web page should refresh automatically. So now let's test this. You can go to File, Save, or use the shortcut. I'm just going to save everything. I'm going to right-click on our HTML file, then open with Live Server. And here's our web page, but it currently doesn't have anything. Let me just minimize this. I will readjust this window. Throughout this course, I'll have VS Code alongside a web browser. With our HTML file, we can add elements, such as an H1 element. These are typically used as headers. I'm going to say, hello, then save, and that should update automatically. Or you can press the refresh button, but since we have Live Server installed, we shouldn't need to. Then paragraphs are typically used for a paragraph of text. In VS Code, to generate a random paragraph of text, you can type lorem, then hit tab. Now we should have a random paragraph. I believe it's Latin. At least it looks like it. To change the style of our web page, we can go to our style sheet. To change the style of the body of our document, we will select body. I'll change the font family to something else. Font family. How about Verdana? There, we now have a different font. To increase the font size, you can set the font size property to be either in pixels or EM. Personally, I'm a fan of using EM. 2EM means 200%, where 3EM is 300%, but that's a little too big. Let's stick with 2EM. All right, and that is everything we need to get started. Oh, important note, you do want your script element at the bottom of the body of your document. Just in case there's an error with your JavaScript file, you do want all of the HTML elements to at least render first, before running any JavaScript code. All right, so let's delete our H1 elements and our paragraph element. We no longer need them for now. Be sure to save everything. We'll work with some basic output. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. To output some text, you can type console.log, add a set of parentheses, then a semicolon at the end. Within the set of parentheses, to output some text, you can either use double quotes, single quotes, or backticks. Personally, I'm a fan of using these backticks. This is known as a template literal. They're helpful with inserting variables, which we will discuss in the next lesson. Using either double quotes or single quotes or backticks, we can output some text. Let's say the word hello. Be sure to save. I'm holding Control S on Windows. There's no apparent output. We have to go to DevTools. So right-click on your web page, go to Inspect, then Console. And here's our basic output. Hello. For an additional line of output, we can console.log again. Let's print a different message. I like pizza. Let's save. And here's my second line of text. I like pizza. And I'm just going to move these windows a little bit. That's better. Throughout much of the series, we will be working with this window. Again, you have to right-click on your web page, go to Inspect, then go to Console. Now within our web page, to create an alert box, you can type window.alert, add a set of parentheses, semicolon to the end. We'll use a template literal. We'll need a set of backticks. This is an alert. This should create a pop-up window. This is an alert. Let's create another. Let's copy what we have, paste it. I like pizza. Let's save. This is an alert, okay? I like pizza. Not sure why we need to tell a user that, but we can. Now we have comments. To create a comment, you type 2 forward slashes. Comments aren't used for output. They're used as notes for yourself or for other developers. This is a comment. So when I run this program, then if we were to go to our DevTools, we don't see this comment at all. They're not displayed as output. They're either used for notes for yourself or for other people. For a multi-line comment, you can type a forward slash, asterisk. Anything that comes after will be a comment. This is a comment. You can see that the text is green. That means it's a comment. Again, we should not be able to see these comments. They're hidden. I'm going to turn this JavaScript code into comments just for the next part, because these window alerts are kind of annoying, to be honest. Alright, now what we're going to do is populate our web page with some text. Within our HTML file, I will create an h1 element. H1s are usually used for headers or titles. There will be no text content yet, but I will set an ID. I will give this h1 element a unique ID of my h1. Feel free to pick a different ID, something you'll remember. I will also create a paragraph element. I will set the ID to equal my p, meaning my paragraph. So remember, there is no text content currently. Using JavaScript, we will add some text content. First, we need to select these elements by their ID, my h1 and my p. Let's do that here. We will type document, meaning the document of our web page, dot get element by ID. Do pay attention to the capitalization. What ID are we getting? Let's start with my h1. So copy the ID, paste it within the set of parentheses. Be sure you're including quotes as well. Follow this with dot text content. We will set this equal to, how about the word hello? Let me zoom out a little. Again, this can be backticks, single quotes, or double quotes. All right, let's type the word hello. Now when I save and refresh the page, that h1 element should display the word hello. Now this time, let's get our paragraph element with the ID of my p, my paragraph. Document.get element by ID. The ID that we're getting is my p. We'll change the text content equal to, what can we say? I like pizza. There we go. Hello, I like pizza. All right, everybody, so that's the basics of JavaScript. When working with basic output, you can use console.log, which we will be using a lot. To create an alert, you can use window.alert. To change the text content of an HTML element, you first have to select that element, then change the text content, then set it equal to some text of your choosing. All right, everybody, so that is the very basics of JavaScript, and in the next topic, we will cover variables. All right, well, it's time that we discuss variables. Do you remember from middle school or elementary school when you learned algebra? You had to solve for what the value of x was. X was some representation of a value. Well, that's kind of what a variable is in programming. It's a container that stores a value. The variable behaves as if it were the value it contains. There's two steps to creating a variable: declaration and assignment. To use a variable, we have to first declare it. We'll use the let keyword, then a unique variable name, like x, then a semicolon. So what we've done is declaration. Each variable name needs to be unique. If I were to declare another variable named x, we would run into an error, a syntax error. Identifier x has already been declared, so your variable names need to be unique. I can declare two variables, x and y, and they both have different names. That is fine, but they can't have the same name. The next step to creating a variable is to assign it a value. Once you declare your variable, you don't need to declare it again. So I'm going to assign x to equal some number like 100. We can use this variable x, and it will behave as if it was the value 100. Let me demonstrate. So if I was to console.log x, well then it's going to display 100. If I were to change this value to 123, well, x is now 123. You can do both declaration and assignment together. That would look something like this. Let x equal 123. This is both declaration and assignment. If you're creating a program and you know what your values should be, you can assign them a value right away. Sometimes you may want to accept some user input, so then you might do assignment later in 2 steps. It's really up to how you write your program. There's a few different data types in JavaScript. The first is number, like 123. Let's create a descriptive name for our variable like age. We will store a user's age. According to my analytics in YouTube, the average age of my viewers is 25. So let's say that my age is 25. Then if I was to console.log my age variable, it would behave as if it were the number 25. Let's create a few more variables. Another example of a number could be price. let price equal $10.99. Maybe it's $10.99 or some other unit of currency of your choosing. Then we will console.log price, $10.99. What about a GPA, a grade point average? My grade point average is a solid 2.1. It's not great, but C's get degrees. Console.log GPA 2.1. Using a template literal, we can insert a variable using a placeholder. Within console.log, I will use backticks. Let's write a sentence. You are, then to insert a variable, use $, curly braces. Place your variable name within the curly braces. Then we can continue our sentence. You are variable age, years old. Let's create another sentence using console.log. The price is $, curly braces, price. The price is $10.99. I'm going to insert a $, before our price, and that looks better. Feel free to choose some other unit of currency. Okay, let's add a sentence to display our GPA. Console.log. Your GPA is colon space. We're inserting a variable. We need $, curly braces. We're displaying our GPA. Your GPA is 2.1. Now, if you need to display the data type of a variable, you can use console.log, then precede the variable with the type of keyword. What is the type of age? Age is a number type. Price is also a number type. Same thing with GPA. They're all numbers. Let's go over a different data type. Let's go over strings. A string is a series of characters. Let's say we have a user's first name. To create a string, you can either use double quotes or single quotes. Personally, I like double quotes. Then you can type in some characters like first name. Let's say my first name is Bro. Feel free to pick your own first name. I will display the type of my first name variable, and it says it's a string, a series of characters. Then I will display my name. Console.log, first name, and it is Bro, or whatever your first name is, whatever you put here. Let's include our variable within a template literal. Your name is, add a placeholder, first name. Your name is Bro. What are some other examples of a string? Maybe somebody's favorite food. Favorite food. My favorite food is pizza. Type in your favorite food. Console.log. You like, add our placeholder, favorite food. You like pizza. Maybe if I like something else, like sushi, well, you like sushi. Okay, another example of a string could be an email. Let email equals, then type in your email. I'm just going to make one up. bro@gmail.com. Console.log. Your email is email. Your email is bro@gmail.com. Let me make the G lowercase. Now, an important thing with strings is that strings can contain numbers. After bro, I'll add 1, 2, 3. So a string is a series of characters. They can include numbers, but we can't use these numbers for any sort of math. Strings have a different behavior from numbers. Numbers we can use in arithmetic expressions. Strings, not so much. Alright, let's turn these lines into comments. Then I will discuss booleans. Okay, booleans are either true or false. Typically, they're used as flags in your program. Let online equal true. Booleans are either true or false. Is somebody online or are they offline? This is either true or false. I will display the type of my variable online. Console.log type of online. So online is a Boolean variable. Let's display our variable within a template literal. Type in whatever your first name is. Bro is online. Then I will insert a placeholder, add my Boolean variable of online. Bro is online. That is true. If I were to change this to false, bro is online is false. Booleans are typically used as a sort of flag. So another example could be for sale. Is something for sale or not? Let's say that we are selling, I don't know, cars. Is this car for sale? I could set this to be true or false. Let's console.log. Is this car for sale? Then I will add my Boolean variable for sale. Is this car for sale? That is true. Another example, let's say that somebody is enrolled in school, like in college courses. We could say let is student. Is somebody a student? Are they enrolled? This can be true or false. Console.log enrolled colon space is student. Is the student enrolled in classes? That is true. So those are Booleans. They're either true or false. Typically, we don't use them as direct output like you see here. We usually use them with if statements to check something. Like, if somebody is online, do this. If not, do something else. Is a car for sale? If that's true, then display the car. If it's not, then hide it. We'll have more practice with Booleans when we reach if statements. Alright, now what we're going to do is we will close out of DevTools. We'll display some variables within our web page. So let's delete everything we have. I'll create 3 variables. Let full name equals, type in your full name. Feel free to add a space between your first name and last name. Let age, type in your age. And let student equals, if you're a student, type true. If you're not in school, type false. I am not in school anymore, so I will type false. We will go to our HTML file, then add some HTML elements. I will add 3 paragraph elements. So that's 1, 2, 3. I will give my first paragraph an ID of P1. Then let's do the same with the other 2 paragraphs. Let's rename the second as P2 and the third as P3. So to change the text content of an HTML element, we're going to type document, meaning the document of our web page. Then we will get our element by its ID. Get element by ID. Then within a set of parentheses, within a set of quotes, we will select the ID that we need. Let's start with P1, then add dot text content to change the text content. Then we will set this equal to a variable or a template literal. Let's begin with a variable. So full name. Our P1 element should display your full name. Let's do this with P2. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. P2 dot text content equals age. It says that I'm 25. And then P3. Let's display student, or better yet, is student. Let's change that. Is student. False. I am not a student, but you might be though. That might be true. Then let's display our variables along with some text using a template literal. Let's copy our full name. Your name is, add a placeholder, place our variable name. Your name is brocode, or whatever your name is. Let's cut our age variable. You are variable age, years old. You are 25 years old. And then let's cut is student. Add a template literal. Let's say enrolled. Are you enrolled in school? Add a placeholder. Paste our variable. Enrolled. That is false. I am not in school anymore. Alright everybody, so those are variables. It's a container that stores a value. The variable behaves as if it were the value it contains. There's a couple different basic data types. You have strings, which is a series of text, numbers, and booleans. There's more advanced data types, but we'll cover that later. And well, those are variables in JavaScript. Yeah, what's going on everybody? So today I need to explain arithmetic operators, because, well, programming can sometimes involve a lot of math. Operands are values, variables, etc. In this equation, 11, x, and 5 are all operands. Operators, they can include, but are not limited to, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. In this equation, the addition sign would be the operator. So there's a few things you should know regarding arithmetic operators in JavaScript. So let's begin. Let's pretend that in this scenario we are a teacher. We have a group of students. Let students equals, what's a good class size? Maybe 30 students. Then I will console.log my students variable. And it should be 30. Let's say that a new student joins the class, and I need to change this variable. To increase students by 1, I can say students equals, this will reassign my variable, equals the current value of students plus 1. Now we have 31 students. Now for subtraction, that is the minus sign. To subtract a student, we can reassign our variable students equals students minus 1. Now we have 29. Then we have multiplication, which is represented by an asterisk. We will double the number of students we have. Students equals students, asterisk 2 to multiply by 2. We have 60 students. Division is a forward slash. We will split our class of students into 2. Students divided by 2. We now have 15. Alright, then we have exponents. Exponents is represented by double asterisks. What is students to the power of 2? 900 students. That is a very large class. Maybe it's a lecture or something in a college. So students to the power of 3, that would be... Students to the power of 3 would be 27,000. Double asterisks is the exponent operator. Here's another helpful one. It is the modulus operator. It gives you the remainder of any division. So let's say we are going to divide our class into 2. So modulus, which is represented as a percent sign, 2. Well, 30 divides by 2 evenly, so the remainder is 0. If we had a class of 31 students, well, there's one remainder, one student. Students modulus 3 would divide my class of 31 students into 3. We would still have one student remaining. Since we're reassigning students, we would be replacing 31 students with the value of 1. If you're using the modulus operator, I would recommend creating a separate variable entirely. Let extra students equal our students modulus 3. We have one extra student. Just one. Okay, that is the modulus operator. There is a shortcut for writing these expressions because it can be kind of tedious to write the variable name twice. So let's set students back to 30. I will console.log students. We'll use what is known as augmented assignment operators. To increase students by a number, if we're reassigning it, we can say students plus equals 1 or some other number. Students is now 31. If I were to change 1 to be 2, it's now 32 and 33. Let's do the same thing with subtraction. Students minus equals 1. We now have 29 students. Multiplication, students times equals 2. That would give us 60 students. Students divided by equals 2. We have 15 students. All right, then exponents. Students to the power of equals 2. 900 students. Then modulus. Students modulus equals 2. We have no remaining students. 30 divides by 2 evenly. So another place where modulus could be helpful is if you're determining if a number is even or odd. 30 is an even number. Divided by 2, the remainder is 0. 31 is odd. The remainder is 1. There's also the increment and decrement operator. There's a couple different ways to add 1 to a variable, but you should be aware of all of them. To increase a variable by only 1, you can take the name of the variable, then add plus plus. Plus plus is the increment operator. 30 incremented by 1 is 31. Then there is the decrement operator, which is minus minus. 30 decremented by 1 is 29. Alright, then lastly, we're going to cover operator precedence. This is pretty important. Given a very complex equation such as this example, in which order do you solve each part of this equation? So with operator precedence, beginning with the left, working our way to the right, you would solve anything with parentheses, then exponents, multiplication and division, and modulo, otherwise known as modulus, then lastly addition and subtraction. Let's go through this step by step. Let's see what the result variable is. I will console.log result. So the result is 23. So if we were to walk through this step by step, let's solve anything with parentheses, starting from the left and then working our way to the right. There are no parentheses, we can skip this step. Next is exponents. There is one exponent here, so we would solve 4 to the power of 2, which is 16. Then we will solve multiplication and division and modulus. That's addition, we skip that. We have multiplication, 2 times 3 is 6. There is no more multiplication, division, or modulus. Then lastly, addition and subtraction. 1 plus 6 is 7. 7 plus 16 is our result of 23. Alright, I'll give you a few more exercises. How about this equation? The result is going to be 6. So there's no parentheses, no exponents. We do have a modulus operator here, so we solve that first. 12 modulus 5 gives us a remainder of 2. We have some division, we would solve that next. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Then addition and subtraction. The result is 6. Alright, here's a challenge round. The result is going to be 0.0468. We solve anything with parentheses first. 2 plus 5, that is 7. Then exponents, 2 to the power of 7. I might need a calculator. 2 times 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 128. Then we have 6 divided by 128. Then we have 6 divided by 128, which is 0.046875. And that is our result. Alright everybody, so that is everything you need to know about arithmetic operators. You have operands, which are values and variables in arithmetic expression, and operators. There's also augmented assignment operators, which is a shortcut to writing these equations if you're going to reassign a variable. Then you have increment and decrement operators to increase a variable by 1 or decrease it by 1. Then with operator precedence, if you're solving a complex equation, you solve each part of the equation following this order. And well, that is everything you need to know regarding arithmetic operators in JavaScript. Yeah, what's going on people? So today I'm going to show you how we can accept some user input in JavaScript. Generally, there's 2 good ways of doing this. The easy way is to create a window prompt. The professional way is to create an HTML text box of some sort, and you'll likely need a button to submit the user input. Let's begin with the easy way. We'll create a window prompt. The first thing we should do is declare all of the variables we're going to use. Let's create a variable named username. We'll declare it, but not yet assign it. Then when we assign it, we can set username equal to, then to create a window prompt, we can type window.prompt, parentheses. Then within the parentheses, our window prompt can contain some text. Let's ask, what's your username? Okay, let's run this and see what happens. What's your username? I will type in my username, press OK. We have this variable username. It will have a value, but we should do something with it. Let's console.log console.log our username. Let's try that again. What's your username? I'll type in my username. Feel free to type in yours. Let's check our DevTools. And here's my username. So that's the easy way to accept user input. With this window prompt, you could assign declaration and assignment together if you want to. That would also work. Now we will accept user input the professional way by creating an HTML text box. We will navigate to our HTML file. Okay, let's create an h1 element that says welcome. We'll need a text box. We'll use a self-closing input tag. I will set the ID of this text box to be my text. I'll create a label for this text box too, because if we're a user, we don't know what we're supposed to type in here. I will create a label. The text within the label will be username. Then a submit button. The text will be submit. I'll put this on a new line. I'll add a break tag. Maybe 2. To make it look nice. For the ID of the button, I'll set the ID to be my submit. Let's see if this works. This is a little advanced. When we click on this button, we're going to execute a function. But we need to select this button. We will access the document of our web page, get element by ID. The ID that we're getting is the ID of the button, my submit. So within quotes, type the name of the ID. Follow this with .onClick equals. Here we'll write everything we're going to do after clicking the button. We need a function. Function, parentheses, curly braces. Everything between this set of curly braces is everything we'll do when we click on the button. So first we need a username variable outside of the function. When we click on the button, get the text from this text box. We will reassign our username, then set this equal to the text from the text box. We'll use document.getElementById. The ID that we're getting this time is my text. We need the value of the text box, so follow this with .value. All right, then to test this, let's console.log the username. All right, let's type in our username, press submit, then check DevTools. Yeah, there it is. Okay, let's replace console.log. We'll change the text content of our h1 element. I will give this h1 element a unique ID. Let's say my h1. We need to select my h1 element. Document.getElementById. The ID was my h1. We are changing the text content equal to, let's use a template literal. Hello, username. All right, let's try this again. Type in your username, press submit, and that should change the h1 element. Hello, whatever your name is. All right, everybody, so those are 2 different ways to accept user input. You can use a window prompt, or you can use an HTML text box. And that is how to accept user input in JavaScript. All right, so yeah, type conversion. Type conversion is the process of changing the data type of a value to another data type. For example, we can convert strings to numbers, numbers to booleans, booleans to strings, numbers to strings, booleans to numbers. I think you get the idea. Why might we want to do this? Well, when we accept user input, the data type of that input is a string. If we need to use it for any sort of math, we need to convert it to a number. Here's an example. Let's say we have variable age. I will create a window prompt, window.prompt. We will ask a user, how old are you? I'm going to add 1 to our age plus equals 1, then console.log age. How old are you? Let's say I'm 25, press OK. Let's inspect our page, go to console. It shows that age is 251. When we accept user input, it's a string data type, a series of characters. By adding 1, we appended 1 to the end of our string. We're not increasing our age by 1. We're doing string concatenation. We are going to convert our user input into a number. And this is how. So after accepting our user input, and before making any changes to it, let's reassign age equal to, and this is a function, the number function. It will convert another data type, such as a string or boolean, into a number. Then we'll place our age variable within that function. So now this should work. How old are you? Let's say I'm 25, press OK. 26. So that's the reason you may want to type convert, because different data types behave differently. Along with my age variable, I'm going to display the type of age. What's the data type? How old are you? 25, press OK. 26, and it shows that the data type of age is number. If we removed this type conversion, and then run this again, it shows that our age is 251, and it's a string, which is not exactly what we would like. That's a reason why type conversion is important. Let me give you another example. Let's create 3 variables. Let x, let y, and let z. I'll show you what happens when we convert different values into different data types. Let's say x is the word pizza. Same thing with y and z. I will typecast x as a number. Then we need to place x within the number function. I kind of want to see what happens when we try and convert pizza into a number. It's probably not going to go well. Let's convert y into a string. Then z will be a boolean. Let's console.log x as well as the type of x. Let's do the same thing with y and z. All right, what's going to happen? If you attempt to convert alphabetical characters into a number, that variable will be NaN, which means not a number. The data type is still number, though, as you can see. The word pizza is already a string, so converting it into a string really doesn't do anything. That's why for this line, the value is still pizza, and the data type is still a string. If you convert a string into a boolean, booleans again are either true or false. Converting the word pizza into a boolean returns true, and the data type is boolean. So basically, as long as there's some value here, and you convert it into a boolean, it will always be true. Let's replace pizza with 0. What will happen? We can convert 0 into a number. It doesn't contain any alphabetical characters. X contains 0, it's a number. Y is 0, but it's treated as a string. Z contains true, and it's a boolean. What about empty strings? Just a set of quotes. Typecasting an empty string as a number is still 0. We have an empty string for y. Then with our boolean, it's false. Why might you want to typecast a string as a boolean? That's one way in which you can check to see if user input is empty. Like, did somebody type something in? If a user skipped user input, it's most likely going to be an empty string. Then you can check to see, like, if this is false, then the user didn't type in anything, and you can let them know. What about a variable that's declared but not assigned a value? Converting an undefined variable to a number results in not a number. Our string is undefined, and our Boolean variable returns false. So that's the basics of type conversion. It's the process of changing the data type of a value to another. It's pretty important when you accept user input, because when you accept user input, it's a string data type. At times, you may want to convert it to a number if you need to include that number with any sort of arithmetic expressions, or a Boolean if you're checking to see if that user input was completed. We'll have more practice with this in the future. And well, that is type conversion in JavaScript. Why, hello. So today I need to explain const. Const, short for constants, are variables that can't be changed once you assign them. In this example, we're going to create a program to calculate the circumference of a circle, given a radius. Let's define our variables. First, we have pi. We'll begin with using let, then I'll show you the benefit of using const. So let pi equals, I'll use the first few digits of pi, 3.14159. Then we have let radius, which we will assign later. We'll ask for user input. Then let circumference. I think I spelled that right. I can never spell circumference. All right, now we need to ask the user what the radius is. I will just use a window prompt. Radius equals window.prompt. Enter the radius of a circle. Then once we have our radius, when we accept user input, it's a string data type. We need to convert our radius into a number by using the number function. Then once we have our radius, we can calculate the circumference by setting circumference equal to, and here's the formula, 2 times pi times our radius that the user enters in. Then once we have our circumference, let's console.log our circumference. Let's see if this works. Enter the radius of a circle. I'll enter 10, press OK. The circumference is 62.8. So why might you want to use a const in this program? You may accidentally, or somebody else may maliciously, change the value of a variable so that the program doesn't behave as intended. For example, somewhere within my program, I will set pi to be a new number. Pi equals 420.69. Let's run this program again. Enter the radius of a circle. I'll enter 10, press OK, and my circumference is 8,413. I may not realize that this is the incorrect answer. Just for an extra security measure, I can turn any variables that shouldn't change to be a constant. Replace let with const. And it is good practice if you have any constants to make all of the letters in the variable name uppercase. So pi is now capital P-I. Hey, this is Bro from the future. There's one thing I needed to clarify that I forgot to mention. Capitalizing your constants is usually only done with primitive data types, such as numbers and booleans. Reference data types, such as strings, don't normally follow this convention. You'll see this in the next few upcoming videos. Pi is a constant and we're assigning a number, that's why I'm making it all uppercase. But if this was a string, normally we wouldn't. That is all. Let's try and change that variable again. Pi equals 420.69. So we have an uncaught type error. Assignment to constant variable. So JavaScript won't let us reassign constants once they are assigned once. We can't make any changes to it. Once you declare a constant, you can't change the value. And that's pretty helpful in a lot of circumstances. It's an extra security measure. What we'll do this time is within our web page, we will accept some user input via a text box. We'll rewrite the same program. Let's create an h1 element. I will set the ID of the h1 element to be my h1. And the text will be enter the radius of a circle. I'll create a text box. Input. I'll set the type equal to text. The ID equal to my text. I'll create a label for this input text box. Let's say radius. I'll add a button. The button will say submit. The ID will be my submit. Then I'll add 2 breaks right after the text box to make it look nice. Let's get rid of console.log. When we click on the submit button, we will execute a function. We need to select the button. Let's take our document, get element by ID, The ID is my submit. Follow this with dot on click equals a function, parentheses, curly braces. When we click on the button, we'll execute any code within the curly braces. We can eliminate our window prompt. We need to get the value from the text box. Again, we can use document.getElementById, but the ID is going to be my text, the text from the text box. Dot value. Get the value from the text box, and we will assign that to radius. Then we will typecast our input as a number. Then we will calculate the circumference. But since pi is a constant, make sure that the letters are uppercase pi. Once we have our circumference, let's change an h3 element. So let's add that as well. h3, the ID will be my h3. There will be no text content. Then again, we will get element by ID. The ID will be my h3. Change the text content of this element to equal our circumference. Okay, let's try this. The radius is 10. Press submit. And here is our circumference. Maybe this will be in centimeters. So let me change that. I'll use string concatenation and just add plus centimeters. So 10, submit, 62.83 centimeters. If I attempt to change the value of pi, maybe I'll do that here. Pi equals 420.69. Rerun the program, 10, submit. There doesn't appear to be a result. So if we go to DevTools, go to console, we have that uncaught type error, assignment to constant variable. So again, we can't change the value of a constant. There are more graceful ways of handling this. We'll learn about that when we get to exception handling. However, this is what we wanted. We do not want to be able to change the value of a constant. All right, everybody, so those are constants. It's just a variable that can't be changed once you assign it a value. And well, those are constants in JavaScript. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So in today's video, we're going to create a counter program using JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, let's begin, everybody. So what we're going to do is start with our index.html file. We'll add any necessary elements. Then we will style those elements with our CSS file. Then lastly, we will add functionality via JavaScript. So let's begin with our HTML file. Within the body of our document, I will create a label to store the count. So I will create a label with an ID of count label. The text will be 0. It's a little small, but that's okay. We'll increase the font size with CSS. I'll add a break afterwards with a break tag. We'll need 3 buttons: decrease, reset, and increase. So we have button 1. Let's copy this button, paste it 2 additional times. The ID for the first button will be decrease, btn for button. The text will be decrease. Then for the second button, the ID will be reset button. The text will be reset. Then increase. ID, increase, button. The text will be increase. What I'm also going to do is place our buttons within a div section. Let's cut our buttons. Then place the buttons within the div. I will give the div a unique ID of button container. We'll center align our button container so it's in the middle of the window. Okay, that is everything we need with our HTML file. let's move to our CSS file. Let's style the count label. It's a little small right now. I will select the ID count label. I will display the label as a block level element. I will text align center so it's in the center of our screen. Let's increase the font size. I tend to like to use the EM unit of measurement. The text will be 10 times the size. Then let's change the font family. Pick a font of your choosing. For this example, I'll use Helvetica. Let's center the button container. That should surround all 3 buttons, as you can see here. The ID was button container text align center. Okay, the buttons should be in the middle. One thing I forgot to do, let's actually add a class to our buttons too. Class equals buttons. There. Alright, we will select the buttons class. I'll add some padding. Padding, 10 pixels and 20 pixels. Let's increase the font size. Font size, 1.5 EM. That translates to 150%. Let's pick a font color. I'll just pick white. Then a background color for the buttons. Background dash color. I'll use HSL values. How's that? Not feeling it. That's pretty good. Let's round the corners with border radius, 5 pixels. I'll change the cursor into a pointer when we hover over a button. Cursor, pointer. Then we'll add a transition animation. Transition, background, dash color after 0.25 seconds. Then we'll apply the hover pseudo class when we hover over one of the buttons. Take our buttons class, use the hover pseudo class. We will change the background color after a quarter of a second, then change the background color to something slightly darker. Yeah, that looks good. There should be a delay when you hover over one of the buttons. Our HTML file is done, same with our CSS. Now we need to add functionality, because, well, these buttons don't do anything. I will individually assign all of these buttons so that each is stored within a constant. So const decrease button equals, then we need to select each button by accessing our document dot get element by ID. What's the ID we're selecting? We will begin with our decrease button. All right. Then we need our reset button. Reset button. The ID is reset button. Then increase button. Increase button. The ID is increase button. We need our count label. Okay, then we will set const count label equals, then we need to get the ID of our count label. So document.getElement by ID, count label. Then we will use let count equal 0. We'll be reassigning count. We'll be incrementing and decrementing count. With our HTML elements, we do not plan on reassigning them, so we can set them as constants. Now we need a few functions, 3 functions. One for each of these buttons: decrease, reset, increase. Let's begin with increase. So we are taking our increase button that we assigned. With the onClick attribute of this button, set this equal to a function. What's it gonna do? When we want to increase this value of our count label, let's increment count by 1, count plus plus. Then we will set the text content of our label, count label dot text content equals whatever the count currently is. Let's see if this works. It looks like I misspelled onClick. Alright, let's see if this works. Yep, every time we press the button, our count label increases by 1. Okay, let's work on decrease. Really, we can just copy this function. Paste it. Let's change increase to decrease. Count minus minus. Save everything. And we should be able to increase and decrease. Then the reset button. Let's copy one of these functions. Change decrease button to reset button. When we want to reset, we will set count back to 0. Then update our count label with the current count, which should be 0. We can increase, we can decrease, and we can reset. Then increase and decrease again. Alright everybody, so that is a counter program with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Hey, what's going on everybody? So today I'm going to explain math. Math is a built-in JavaScript object that provides a collection of math-related properties and methods. For example, if you ever need the value of pi, you would type math with a capital M dot pi. Then let's console.log this. Console.log math.pi. Pi is 3.14 and the rest of the digits. If you need E is known as Euler's number. It's used for the base of natural logarithms. We won't really be using E in this series, but if you ever need it, it's there. Math does give you access to a lot of useful math-related methods. Let's create a few variables. Let x equal 3.21. Let y equal 2. And let z will be undefined. If you need to round a number, let's say z equals, you can type math.round method. Place whatever value or variable you would like to round within the round method. Let's round x, store the result within z, then display z. Console.log z. So 3.21 rounded is 3 even. There's also floor. Floor will always round down. Let's change 3.21 to 3.99. Let's copy this line. Paste it, change round to floor. Floor always rounds down, so 3.99 rounded down is again 3. To always round up, you can use ceil, as in ceiling, the opposite of floor. CEIL. Let's change 3.99 to 3.21. 3.21 rounded up is 4. Then there's truncate. Trunc, short for truncate, will eliminate any decimal portion. 3.21 truncated is 3. Another way to raise a base to a given power is to use the POW method, POW. Let's raise 3 to the power of 2. So x to the power of y, which would be 9. Y to the power of x would be 8. There's a square root function. SQRT. Let's find the square root of, how about 81? The square root of 81 is 9. If you ever need to find the natural logarithm of a number, you can use the log function. Math console.log. Let's set x to be 10. The natural logarithm of 10 is 2.3. If you need to do anything with trigonometry, there's sine, cosine, and tangent functions. Let's begin with sine, S-I-N. Within this function, you will place radians. I'll set x to be 45. So z is going to be 0.85. So that's sine. Let's do cosine, which is cos, 0.52. Then tangent, tan. And that is 1.61. Let's change x to be negative 3.21 again. To find the absolute value of a number, you can use the absolute value function, math.abs. It's basically going to give you the same number, but it's going to be positive. The absolute value of negative 3.21 is 3.21. Basically, we're eliminating the negative sign. To find the sign of a number, you can use the sign function, sign. So the sign of negative 3.21 is negative 1. If this were a positive number, it would be 1. If it's 0, then the sign is 0. Here's a pretty helpful method. We can find the maximum or minimum value from a set of values or variables. Let's set z to be 1, y will stay as 2, and x will be 3. I will create a new variable named max. It will store the maximum value from these 3 variables. Math.max, comma separate each of the variables, x, y, z. Then display the maximum within our console.log method. The maximum value from these 3 variables is 3. Then there's min. For the minimum, let min.min. So the minimum of these 3 variables is 1. Alright everybody, so that's math. It's a built-in JavaScript object that provides a collection of properties, which was pi and e, and methods such as round, truncate, power, methods related to trigonometry, and max and min methods. They're pretty helpful if you ever need them. And well, that is what math is in JavaScript. Hey, what's going on everybody? So in today's video, we're going to create a random number generator. But first, I need to explain how to create a random number in JavaScript. Let's store our random number within a variable which we will name random num. To create a random number in JavaScript, we can use the random method of math. Math.random method. This will generate a random number between 0 and 1. But it looks like we forgot to output our random number, so let's do that with console.log. Console.log random num. This will generate a random number between 0 and 1. It will give us a number with a long decimal portion, most likely. Let's say we would like to roll a 6-sided dice. I need a random number between 1 and 6, not including the decimal portion. So the first step is that we will multiply math.random times 6. What this will do is give us a random number between 0 and 6 exclusive. Now I don't want the decimal portion, I would like a whole integer. We'll enclose this equation with the floor method of math. Math.floor. Then we will enclose our equation. So now we have, oops, it looks like I misspelled math. It should be capital. There. So far, our random number is going to be between 0 and 5. So there's 0, and there's 5. But I need 1 through 6. Well, we can increase the minimum by adding +1, or whatever you want the minimum to be. So now, that should give us a random number between 1 and 6. There's 6, and there's 1. For a random number between 1 and 100, I can set the maximum to be 100, math.random times 100 plus 1. So now the number is going to be between 1 and 100. If you're looking for a random number between a certain range, let's say 50 and 100, well, we're going to change our equation. Just to make this easier to read, I'm going to set 2 constants. Const min, what's the minimum? Let's say 50. And the max, const max, will be 100. Let's replace 100 with our maximum and 1 with our minimum. There's one additional change we need to make. For example, our random number is 139. We're multiplying math.random times 100, our maximum, then adding an additional 50 to it. So one change we're going to make is that we will subtract our minimum from our maximum. Then I will surround this portion of our equation with a set of parentheses just to force operator precedence. Now the random number should be between 50 and 100. So depending on the range of numbers you're looking for, you can change the minimum and the maximum. Alright, now with that out of the way, let's create our random number generator. Let's go to our HTML file. I will create a button. The ID will be my button. The text on the button will be roll. We will roll a 6-sided dice. Within our CSS style sheet, I will set the text of the body of our document. The font family I will set to be Verdana, because I like that font. To center align everything, to make this easy, I will set text align center. Alright, we're getting somewhere. Let's work on the button. I will select the ID of my button. I will change the font size of the button to be 3EM, meaning 300%. I'll add a little bit of padding within our button, 5 pixels by 25 pixels, and I will set the border radius to be 5 pixels, just to smooth the corners. We're also going to need a label, so let's go back to our HTML file. I will add a label with an ID of my label. Within our CSS style sheet, I will select the ID of my label, then change the font size to be 3EM. So be sure to save your CSS file, save your HTML file, then within our JavaScript file, we will need to get our button and the label. We'll store those within some constants. Const my button equals document.get element by ID. The ID of the element we're getting is my button. Then we will need to get my label. My label, the ID is my label. Let's set a minimum. Const min equals, I'll set that to be 1 as if we're rolling a 6-sided dice. Const max equals 6. Then let random num. We'll declare our random number variable, but not assign it quite yet. Okay, when we click on the button, we'll execute a function. We will take my button with the onClick attribute. I will set this equal to a function. What's the function going to do? It's going to roll a random number. Random num equals math.random times our maximum. We'll enclose this equation with math.floor to round it. Math.floor, then add our minimum. Then we will change the text content of my label to display it. My label.text content equals our random num. When we click on the button, it should roll a random number. What are we missing? Not a number. Oh, okay, it looks like I made a mistake. I forgot to add a set of parentheses after random. There we go. I'm going to put the number on a new line. So within our HTML file, I'm just going to add a break tag. There we go. Let's save everything, roll again. So I rolled a 6, 3, 1, 2, 5, 3. Let's say we would like to roll 3 dice, not just 1. We'll make a few changes. I will replace my label with label 1 for the ID. Then I'm going to add a break after. Okay, let's copy our label, paste it 2 times. We'll need labels 2 and 3. I'll also give these labels a class of my labels. We can apply CSS styling to an entire class to make it easy. Alright, within our CSS style sheet, let's replace the ID of my label with the class of my labels. Be sure to save all of your files. Then within our JavaScript file, let's replace my label with label1. The ID is label1. Copy this line of code. Then we need labels 2 and 3. Label 2, label 3. Let's rename random num as random num1. Copy it, paste it 2 times. Then we need random number 2, random number 3. Within our function for our button, change random num to be random num1. Copy this line, paste it 2 times. Then we need random number 2, random number 3. We'll change the text content of my label to be label1 equals random num1. Copy this line, paste it 2 times, change 1 to be 2. Then for the third line, change 1 to be 3. What we'll do now is generate 3 random numbers between 1 and 6, as if we're rolling 3 dice. 232, 361, 225. Alright everybody, that's how to create a random number generator in JavaScript. Hey, so what's going on everybody? Today I gotta explain if statements. So in JavaScript, if a condition of our choosing is true, we can execute some code. If it's not true, we can do something else. That's how to put it simply. For example, let's say we have a user's age. Let age equals 25. To write an if statement, we can type if, a set of parentheses, then a set of curly braces. Within the set of parentheses, we can check a condition. Let's check to see if our age variable is greater than or equal to 18. If this condition is true, we can execute whatever code is within the set of curly braces. If this condition is true, let's console.log a message. You are old enough to enter this site. My age is 25. This condition is true. We will execute this code within the curly braces. You are old enough to enter this site. What if my age was 13? Well, if this condition is true, we don't do this. We don't execute it. We skip over it. If you would rather take a different course of action, if you would rather do something else, you can write an else clause. If this is not true, we will do whatever's within the else clause. Let's display a different message. You must be 18 plus to enter this site. My age is 13. We will end up displaying, you must be 18 plus to enter this site. Basically speaking, if this condition is true, do this. Else, if not, do this instead. It's kind of like a fork in the road. Which path are we going to take? Here's another example. Let's say we have variable time. Time will be in hours, in military time. If our time is 9, as in 9 a.m., let's write an if statement. If time is less than 12, as in noon, then console.log good morning. Else if it's after 12, that means it's at least the afternoon. Console.log good afternoon. The time is 9, as in 9 a.m. Good morning. What if our time was 14, like 1400 in military time? Well, then we will display good afternoon. Conditions also work very well with Boolean variables. Let's create a Boolean variable is student. If you're a student, say true. If not, then false. Now with a Boolean variable, if you need to check the value with an if statement, you can just place the Boolean variable within the condition itself. The condition either evaluates to be true or false. If is student is true, then console.log you are a student. Else, console.log You are not a student. Is student equals false, we will execute the else clause. You are not a student. If this were true, we'll execute the if clause. You are a student. You can even create nested if statements. This time we will have two variables. Let age equals some age, and let has license, as in a driver's license. That's how to spell license. Has license will either be true or false. So in the United States, you need to be at least 16 years old to have your license. We'll check that first. If age is greater than or equal to 16, let's console.log. You are old enough to drive. Else, console.log. You must be 16 plus to have a license. If I changed my age to 15, well, I'm not old enough to have a license, at least in the United States. It might vary depending on your country. Let me know in the comments section how old you have to be to get a driver's license. I'm kind of curious. You can use another if statement within an if statement. After we check to see if somebody is old enough to have a license, let's check to see if they do have a license or not. So I will add another if statement within our if statement. Pay attention to the indentation. If has license. Since we're checking a Boolean variable, that is going to be the condition itself. It evaluates to be true or false. If has license, console.log, you have your license. Else, again, pay attention to the indentation. Console.log, you do not have your license yet. My age is 15. I don't have a license. This is the result. You must be 16 plus to have your license. Since this condition is false, we skip over everything within curly braces entirely. If I set my age to be 18, you are old enough to drive, but I don't have a license. That's set to false. You do not have your license yet. So we execute this condition. So we enter anything within this set of curly braces. We display this message, then check this if statement. My condition is false, then we will execute the else clause. If I set has license to be true, well then, you are old enough to drive, you have your license. Alright, now I need to discuss else if statements. We will keep our age variable. We have our if statement. If age is greater than or equal to 18, then we will console.log. You are old enough to enter this site. Else, console.log. You must be 18 plus to enter this site. My age is 18, I can enter this site. If my age was 12, I can't enter this site. If there's any other conditions you want to check before reaching your else statement, you can add an else if clause. Then you can check another condition. Let's check to see if somebody's age is less than 0. Your age can't be below 0. Let's let the user know. Console.log, your age can't be below 0. I will set my age to be -1. That's not possible. Your age can't be below 0. Since this condition is false, we skip over this clause, then move on to the next condition. Else if this condition is true, execute this clause, which it was. Then it's not necessary to go to the else statement because we already executed one of these clauses. You can add as many else if statements as you would like. Let's add another. Else if Let's check to see if somebody is over 100 years old. Age is greater than or equal to 100. Console.log. You are too old to enter this site. Okay, now pay attention to this. It's really important. My age will be 101. You are old enough to enter this site. So why didn't we execute this clause? Our age is greater than or equal to 100. The order of our clauses does matter. We start at the top and work our way down and check all the conditions on the way down. So with our first statement, this if statement, age is greater than or equal to 18. 101 is greater than or equal to 18. We will execute this clause and skip over everything else that comes after. Even though this response is more appropriate for what we're looking for, we still skip over it, even though this is true, because we executed this one first. So I would recommend that we move this clause to the beginning and change it to an if statement. First, let's check to see if age is greater than or equal to 100. Else if age is greater than or equal to 18. So this should work as intended. Our age is 101. You are too old to enter the site. Let's add another else if clause. So to check to see if two values are equal, you got to use the comparison operator, which is two equal signs. Let me give you a demonstration. Else if, let's check to see if somebody's age is directly equal to 0. So be sure you're using two equal signs for a comparison, not one. One equal sign is the assignment operator. You want two equal signs to see if two values are equal. If somebody's age is exactly 0, we'll display a custom message. You can't enter. You were just born. If somebody's age is 0, they're a baby or an infant. So let's set our age to be 0. You can't enter. You were just born. This condition is false. We skip this clause. This condition was true. We execute this clause and skip everything else that comes after. Using all this code, let's work on an exercise. We're going to create a text box and a button so somebody can submit their age. Then depending on what they enter, we will display a message. So within our HTML file, we'll create a few things. Let's create a label. The text on the label will be enter your age. Let's add a break after, then a text box. The label will be input, the type will be text, the ID will be my text. I'll add a break. We'll create a submit button. Button type equals submit. The ID will be my submit. The text on the button will be submit. I will also create a paragraph element. The ID, let's say, is result element to display a result. All right, that is everything we'll need. So we can't see the paragraph element quite yet. The text content of the result element will be one of these lines of text. So let's go back to our index file. We'll create our elements. I will set them to be constants. Const my text equals document.get element by ID. The ID is going to be my text, and const my submit, that's the submit button, document.get element by ID. The ID is going to be my submit. Then lastly, result element. Const result element equals document.get element by ID. The ID is result element. Let's scoot these if statements down. When I click on the button, we will execute a function. The button is named mySubmit. MySubmit.onClick attribute equals a function. When we click on the button, what are we going to do? Let's take all of our if, else if, and else clauses, cut them, then paste them within the function for the button. When we click on the button, then we will check our age. Let's set this variable to be undefined. Then we will get our age from the text box. Age equals my text dot value, get the value from the text box, and assign it to age. But remember, when we get text from a text box, it's a string data type. We need to typecast it to a number. So we will set age to equal, then use the number function to convert it to a number. Then we can check our age. We'll replace console.log with the text content of the result element. Result element dot text content equals our message. I'll use a template literal, so I'll use backticks. Let's copy our text, paste it within the template literal. Then I will delete the console.log message. So we'll just follow this pattern. Result element dot text content equals our message. All right, let's see if this works. So we will type in our age. Let's say I'm 25, press submit. And we have one problem. Let's see what's going on. Oops, okay, so I forgot to add a set of parentheses after the function. Let's add that. Let's say I'm 25, press submit. You are old enough to enter this site. Let's say I'm 12. You must be 18 plus to enter this site. What if I'm 101? You are too old to enter this site. What if I'm 0? You can't enter, you were just born. I'm -1. Your age can't be below 0. Alright everybody, so that is everything you need to know to get started working with if statements in JavaScript. Hey, so today I'm going to explain the checked property in JavaScript. The checked property determines the checked state of an HTML checkbox or a radio button element. By examining this property, we can determine if a checkbox is checked or a radio button is selected. In this program, if I were to not select any of these buttons, we have a different result. Within our HTML file, we will create an input element. The type is going to equal checkbox. Then for the ID, I will set this equal to my checkbox. And here's our checkbox. We should probably add a label so that people know what this is for. So the label, I will set the for attribute to be my checkbox. What's the label gonna say? Let's say subscribe, like a subscribe button. Utilizing the for attribute, if the for attribute is the same as the ID, when we click on the label, it should still select the checkbox. All right, let's add a break. Then we will create some radio buttons. We will again need an input element. The type this time will not be a checkbox, it will be radio. For the ID, this will be a Visa button. I'm going to abbreviate button to BTN, so pay attention to that. Then I will create a label for this radio button. We will set the for attribute to be the same as the ID. Then the text will be Visa. I'm going to add a break. Okay, let's copy this radio button, paste it 2 times. We'll change the second Visa to be MasterCard. Let's change the ID first. MasterCard. Let's copy the ID, paste it within the for attribute of the second label. Then change the text. MasterCard. Then the third ID will be PayPal button. Then change the for attribute and the text. PayPal. So with radio buttons, they should all be within the same group. Currently they're not, so I can select all of them if I would like. We should only be able to select one from any group. we will group these radio buttons by their name attribute. They should all have the same name. The name, let's say, is card. So let's copy this attribute and paste it within the other input elements. Now we should only be able to select one, and that appears to work. Lastly, let's create a submit button. We are creating a button. The text will be submit. The type is submit. And for the ID will be my submit. I will create a paragraph element. We'll populate it with some text, depending if subscribe is checked or not. Same thing goes with our radio buttons. I will create 2 paragraphs after our button. The ID on the first paragraph. Let's name sub result. There will be no text content to begin with. We'll change the text content of our sub result paragraph with some text that states if the user is subscribed or not. We'll create another paragraph for the radio buttons. Again, there's going to be no text content. I'll set the ID of this paragraph to be payment result. Now, before we move to our JavaScript file, I'm just going to edit the CSS on the button to make it a little bit bigger so you guys can read it. So the ID of that button was my submit. We are selecting an ID, my submit. I will set the font size to be 1 EM. And that's probably good enough. Maybe I'll add one more break after the subscribe button and the PayPal radio button, just so that it's not as cramped. That's decent enough. Okay, so be sure to save your CSS file, your HTML file. Then we are now within our JavaScript file. What we're going to do now is get these elements by their ID and store them within constants so they're easier to work with. Okay, let's start with our checkbox. So the checkbox had an ID of my checkbox. Const my checkbox. Be sure to pay attention to the capitalization. Feel free to change that if you would like. Just be sure it's consistent with what you have currently with your HTML elements. We are accessing the document of our web page. Get element by ID. The ID is going to be my checkbox. And that's it. So let's get the other elements. We have my checkbox. Then we have our Visa button. Const Visa button. Get element by ID. Visa button. Then let's repeat this with our MasterCard button. Again, pay attention to the capitalization. It's pretty important. Then we have our PayPal button. We need our submit button next. My submit. Then our paragraph elements. Sub result. Then payment result. All right, here are all the constants that we'll need. So when we click on the submit button, we will execute a function. So we are taking my submit, that's the name of the button, dot on click. I keep on spelling on lick. On click equals a function, parentheses, curly braces. When we click on the button, what are we going to do? We recently learned about if statements. We will first check the checked property of the subscribe button. We'll place it within an if statement. So to create an if statement, it's if, parentheses, curly braces. We are examining my checkbox, that's the subscribe button, dot checked property. This will evaluate to be true or false. If this is true, we will execute this code. If not, we do something else. If somebody is subscribed, let's change the text content of our sub-result paragraph. So sub-result, we are accessing the text content to equal, maybe I'll use a template literal. You are subscribed. Else, the user is not subscribed. Let's copy this line, paste it. You are not subscribed. Let's test this. If I click on the checkbox, then press the submit button, It states that I am subscribed. You are subscribed. If I were to refresh the page, I don't click the subscribe button, press submit, you are not subscribed. All right, we know that that works. Let's move on to the radio buttons. First, we will check to see if somebody selected Visa. We are accessing the Visa radio button. If Visa button dot checked, if this is true, we are changing the text of the payment result paragraph. Payment result dot text content equals you are paying with Visa. Let's see if that works. I'll select Visa, press submit. You are paying with Visa. All right, let's add else if. The next radio button is MasterCard button. If this is checked, MasterCard button dot checked, then we will change the text content of the payment result to be you are paying with MasterCard. You are paying with MasterCard. Let's add another else if statement. Else if, this time we are examining the PayPal button. PayPal button dot checked. If this is true, change the text content of the payment result to be you are paying with PayPal. You are paying with PayPal. Else, if none of these radio buttons are checked, we will change the text content of the payment result to be you must select a payment type. I will press submit without selecting a payment type. You must select a payment type. All right, everybody, so that is the checked property. By examining the checked property of an HTML checkbox or a radio button element, we can determine if those elements are checked or not. And well, that is the checked property in JavaScript. Hey, welcome back. So today I'm going to explain the ternary operator in JavaScript. You write a condition, then add a little question mark, kind of like you're asking a question. How is this useful? Well, it's a shortcut to if and else statements. It helps to assign a variable based on a condition. You write a condition, then use the ternary operator as if you're asking a question. You can write some code if that condition is true. What would you like to do? Then add a colon, then some code if that condition is false. Here's an example. Let's say we have a user's age. Age equals 21. I would like to check to see if somebody's age is greater than or equal to 18. Age greater than equal to 18. Then I will use the ternary operator, kind of like I'm asking a question. Is age greater than or equal to 18? If this condition is true, we can write some code. I'll create a string. You're an adult. Then what if the condition is false? I'll add a colon. Then I will execute this code if the condition is false. You're a minor. This is helpful if you need to assign a variable based on a condition. So I'll create a new variable, let message equals, then we write our condition. So if age is greater than or equal to 18, if that's true, we will assign this string to this variable, this message. If it's false, instead we will assign this one. It's an alternative to writing something like this. So with programming, we try not to repeat ourselves if we don't have to. Here we're assigning message to be either this string or this one. Our ternary operator is more condensed, and I feel like it's easier to read than that if-else statement. It's a shortcut if you choose to use it. I tend to use it a lot. Then just to test it, let's console.log our message, just to be sure that it works fine. Console.log our message. Our age is 21, you're an adult. If my age was 12, you're a minor. Let's go over a few more exercises. This time we will have let time. Time will be between 1 and 24, like a 24-hour clock. I will set time to be 16. 16, I think, would be 4 p.m. We will assign a greeting equals, then we'll write a condition. Is time less than 12? Then ternary operator, like we're asking a question. If the time is less than 12, it's the morning. Good morning. We'll use a colon, then write some code if it's false. If it's not the morning, it's at least the afternoon. Good afternoon. Then let's console.log our greeting. Good afternoon, because it's 4 p.m. What if it was 9? Good morning. All right, I have a few more examples. What if somebody's a student? Let is student. This will be true or false if you're a student. Let message equals. Now with a Boolean variable, you can just write the Boolean variable itself. Is student question mark? Are you a student? If so, you are a student. If not, you are not a student. Then let's console.log our message. We are a student. You are a student. Let's set this to be false. You are not a student. It's very easy to read with Boolean variables. You write the Boolean variable, then add a question mark. Here's a challenge round. We will have a purchase amount as if somebody's buying something. If somebody's purchase amount is over $100, they get a 10% discount. So let purchase amount equal, let's say $125, or some other unit of currency of your choosing. Let discount equals, then the condition is, we're checking if purchase amount is greater than or equal to $100. Question mark. Is somebody's purchase amount greater than $100? If so, they will get a 10% discount. Colon. If that's false, they get no discount, 0. So then let's display the total. Console.log. I'll use a template literal. Your total is, I need a $sign for our unit of currency. Then I need a placeholder, so I need another $sign. The purchase amount minus the purchase amount multiplied by, let me scoot over a little, the discount divided by 100. So the total, since we get a discount, is $112.50. If our purchase amount was $99, well, we don't get that discount. Your total is $99. All right, everybody, so that's the ternary operator. It's a shortcut to an if-else statement. It helps to assign a variable based on a condition. You write a condition, add a question mark as if you're asking a question, do this code if that condition is true, else do this code if that condition is false. I'll be using the ternary operator a lot just because I feel like it's helpful. And well, that is the ternary operator in JavaScript. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So today I'm going to explain switches. A switch can be an efficient replacement to using many else-if statements. Here's an example of a program I wrote without using a switch. We have a day. Day will normally be the number 1 through 7. If day equals 1, we'll console.log it is Monday, which you can see here. If day was 2, well then it's Tuesday. All the way up to 7, which is Sunday. I do have an else statement that states our day variable is not a day. For example, if I set day to be, I don't know, like a string of pizza, well then pizza is not a day, but it really should be. If you find yourself using a lot of else-if statements, I would instead recommend creating a switch. Here's how to create one. We'll keep our day variable. I'll set that to be 1. To create a switch, we will type switch, parentheses, curly braces. Within the parentheses of the switch, we will place a variable or a value. What are we examining? Let's examine our day variable. We examine a value against matching cases. To create a case, type case, then a value or a condition. We will see if day equals 1. So day, case 1. Are these two values equal? If they are, then we can do something. We can execute some code. So add a colon, then any code underneath this case will be executed if there's a match between our value or variable day and this value. So let's console.log it is Monday. Then be sure to add a break. I'll demonstrate why you need break later. So day is 1. It is Monday. Let's add another case for case 2, in case day equals 2. So let's copy and paste what we have. Case 2, it is Tuesday. Let's change day to be 2. It is Tuesday. All right, let's do this all the way up to case 7. All right, we have cases 1 through 7. If I change day to be 7, well then, it is Sunday. You can also add a default case, in case there are no matches. Now what if we set day to be pizza, which doesn't make sense? Well, there are no matching cases. Once we review all of the cases and there's no matches, we exit the switch. You also have the capability to add a default case, in case there are no matches. What's the default behavior of the switch if there's no matching cases? Let's console.log. I should probably use a template literal for this if we're inserting a variable. Our day variable is not a day. So now we should execute this default case. Pizza is not a day. All right, now the reason that we have these break statements is to break out of the switch once we have a matching case. I'll demonstrate what happens if we remove these. All right, let's set day to be 2, as in Tuesday. It is Tuesday, it is Wednesday, it is Thursday, it is Friday, it is Saturday, it is Sunday. 2 is not a day. So the reason that we have these breaks is to break out of the switch. If we don't have them, once we have a matching case, we will execute the code found within that space, then cascade down and execute any code that follows after, including code within different cases. So that's why you want these break statements after each case, to break out of the switch. Let's go over a more complex example. Let's say we have a test score variable between 0 and 100. My score will be 92%. I will also create a letter grade variable, which we will declare but not assign. I'm going to examine our test score. So another way in which you can write a switch is something like this. I'm going to examine the value of true against matching cases which contain a condition. So case, then I'll write a condition. Is test score greater than or equal to 90, as in 90%? This condition will evaluate to be true or false. If true is equal to true, we will do some code. If this is false, we skip over it. If our test score is greater than or equal to 90, let's assign our letter grade variable to equal an A. Then be sure to break. Then I'm going to test this with console.log. We will display our letter grade. We have an A. Let's do this for anything greater than 80. The user will receive a B. Test score greater than or equal to 80. Letter grade will equal B. Let's change our test score to be 85. The user receives a B. Let's follow this pattern. 70 will be a C. Yep, C. 60 will be a D. 60 is D. Then for the default case, I will set letter grade to be F. Letter grade equals F. If I set my test score to be 33%, so with the test score of 33, the letter grade is F. Alright everybody, so that's a switch. If you find you're using a lot of else if statements, I would recommend using a switch instead. It's not bad if you have a few, but if you have many, I would use a switch instead. And well everybody, those are switches in JavaScript. Hey, it's me again. So today I'm going to explain string methods in JavaScript. String methods allow you to manipulate and work with text, also known as strings. In this example, I have a username. Username equals a string of text. Why don't you go ahead and create a username variable and set it equal to either your username, if you have one, or your full name. Strings have different built-in methods where we can manipulate this text one way or another. Here's a few examples. Suppose I would like to get the first character of the string. I can use the char_at method. Type a string or a variable containing a string, then follow this with dot. By adding a dot, we are accessing any properties or methods that the string has. Follow this with char_at, then list an index. The first character is 0. The second character would be 1. So get the character at index 0. That should be a B. However, if I were to run this, let's go to our DevTools. Nothing appears to happen because it's going to return a single character. Let's place that within console.log just so that we can see it. Cut this code and paste it within console.log. So the first character in my string is B, but depending on what you wrote, it might be different for you. The character at index 1 would be R. Then 2 is O. So that is the char_at method. The index of method will return the index of the first occurrence of a character. Let's find the first occurrence of an O. It will return an index. And then again, I have to console.log whatever is returned. So let's place this method within console.log. What is the index of the first occurrence of an O? That would be 2. 0, 1, 2. Otherwise, for the last index, let's change the method to be last index of, which would be 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the length property, this isn't a method. To get the length of a string, type the string or a variable containing the string, dot length. This isn't a method, but it's very similar. So the length of my username is 7 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's how to get the length of a string. Now we are going to trim the string. Maybe there's a bunch of white spaces after or before. I will reassign username equal to, let's take our username variable, dot, and use the trim method to trim any white space. Then I will console.log my username. There's my name, and there's no white space after. Let's add some white space before our name. Yep, and there's no white space. To make my name all uppercase, I can use the toUppercase method. Now my string is all uppercase. Then there's toLowercase to make all of the characters lowercase. There's repeat to repeat a string. Within the parentheses of the method, how many times do you want to repeat the string? If I were to type 3, we'll repeat the string 3 times. To determine if a string starts with a given character, we can use the starts with method. This will return a boolean. I will store that within a result variable. Username dot starts with method. We will check to see if the string starts with an empty space. Then let's console.log the result. That is false. My username does not begin with a space. But what if it did? I'll add one. Then that returns true. This could be useful within an if statement. If result, if the string starts with a white space, let's console.log your username can't begin with an empty space. Else, let's console.log the username. My username has a white space in the beginning. Your username can't begin with white space. If that were false, then we will display my username. So that is the starts with method. There's also ends with. Does my username end with a white space? It does not. But what if it did? Your username can't end with an empty space. Next is the includes method. Does the string contain an empty space? I'll split my username into two. Your first and last name would work as well. Your username can't include an empty space. Currently it does. Your username can't include an empty space. If it didn't, then we passed the test. We will display the username. Alright, now this time we will create a phone number. Let phone number equals, make up some phone number, including dashes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. So this phone number is a string, even though it contains numbers, because strings can contain numbers, but we treat them as characters. Let's eliminate all of the dashes in our phone number. Here's one way in which we can do that. Let's reassign our phone number equals our phone number. We will use the replace all method. Which character are we replacing? Let's replace any dashes, comma, then the character to replace the dashes with, or whatever you put for the first character. We will replace all dashes with no characters. Then let's console.log our phone number. And that should eliminate all of the dashes. Or otherwise, you could replace it with a different character. Let's do a /. So 123/456/7890. There's also the pad start method. Pad start. The first value within the pad start method is a specified length. How many characters should the string be? I would like the string to be 15 characters long. Then for the second value, make sure to comma separate it. We can pad the start of the string with a given character. Let's say 0. So the result is a couple zeros, then our phone number. Pad this string with zeros until it's 15 characters long. If I were to set this to 20, then we would have more zeros. There's more padding. Then there's pad end. Pad the end of the string with this character until the string is 15 characters long. Alright everybody, so those are string methods. They allow you to manipulate and work with text, also known as strings. We'll have more practice with these in the future. And well, those are a few useful string methods in JavaScript. Hey everybody, so today I'm going to explain string slicing in JavaScript. String slicing is the process of creating a substring from a portion of another string. This won't alter the original string. Just to demonstrate, let's create a constant for our full name. Go ahead and type in your full name. Or you can copy me. I'm going to extract the first name from my full name and create a new string out of it. So I'll declare this let first name equals. Now to create a substring, we can follow this formula. We take our string, in this case our full name, dot, then use the built-in slice method. Slice, then we can list a starting and ending index. Where would we like to begin? So the first character has an index of 0. We'll start at the beginning, index 0, comma, where are we going to end? 0, 1, 2. This isn't necessarily going to work, and let me demonstrate. So let's console.log our first name. So my first name is BR. So the ending index is actually exclusive. In my full name, we're ending at O, but we don't include it within our substring because the ending index is exclusive. I'll increase the ending index to 3. That should include one more character, which it does. Now let's get the last name. Let last name equals, again, following this formula, take our original string, use the built-in slice method, state the beginning index, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mine will be 4. Yours may be different depending on what your name is. And the ending index, 4, 5, 6, 7. And remember that the last index is exclusive, so I'm going to increase that to be 8. Then we'll display our last name. Console.log last name. And there's my last name. So the reason that I set the beginning index to be 4 and not 3 is because we'll include that space within the result, as you can see here. If you're going to be creating a substring from some position all the way to the end, you don't necessarily need an ending index. I'm going to remove the ending index, and this should work the same. Alright, what if I need the first character in this string? Let first char, meaning character, equals, take our string, we will use the slice method. For the first character, you can use 0, 1. Then let's display our first character. And in my example, mine is B. For the last character, let last character full name dot slice. We can use a negative index even. If you're using a negative index, you'll begin at the end. Then by decreasing the number, you'll work your way towards the beginning. So the last character in my name is E. Negative 2 would be DE. 3 is ODE. 4 is CODE for code. Negative indices work as well. With these specific numbers that I've listed, they're only going to work if my name is exactly this. What if I were to change my first name to be, instead of Broseph, like Joseph? Then let's display our first name, then our last name. First name Bro, last name F, which is not correct. To make this program more dynamic, we can combine string slicing with the indexOf method. We'll search the string for the first instance of a space. Then, depending on where that space is, we'll take the first part of our full name and create a substring for the first name. Anything after the space will be our last name. So let's turn these lines into comments. We don't need them anymore. Let first name equals, again, take our full name, dot slice. We'll begin at the beginning, index 0. Now, where do we end? We're not going to count the number of characters this time. We're going to calculate it. The ending index will be, take our full name, dot, then use the indexOf method. Where's the first index of a space? So that is the ending position, wherever there's a space. Then we'll display our first name. Let me get rid of our last name. There, Broseph. Now for the last name, let last name equals, let's copy this line of code, paste it. The beginning index will be full name dot index of space. You can list an ending index, but we don't need to. We would like to extract every character that comes after this position, so we don't need an ending index. All right, let's see if this works. Broseph space code. We're including that space. So to remedy this, I can add +1. Find the first index of a space, then start in the position after. That's why we're adding +1. Then give me every letter that comes after. And that works just fine. Broseph code. All right, let's go over an exercise. This time we will list an email. Const email equals, why don't you go ahead and type in your email? I'll make one up for me. bro1@gmail.com. I'll extract the first part of my email to be stored as a username. Let username equals, again, we're going to take our string, email, dot, use the slice method. Where are we going to begin? We'll begin at index 0, that's the beginning of a string. Where will we end? We'll end wherever the @ symbol is, but we need to search for it. We'll use the built-in index of method of a string. Email dot index of, what are we searching for? We are searching for the @ symbol. And let's see if this works. Console.log, our username. Yep, bro1. Then let's get the extension. Let extension equals, we can copy this line of code, paste it, make a few changes. This substring will begin where the last one ended. And then again, console.log, the extension, @gmail.com. Again, like I said before, I would like to begin after this index. I will add +1. My username is bro1, my extension is gmail.com. Alright everybody, so that's string slicing. It's the process of creating a substring from a portion of another string. When you create a substring, you won't alter the original. And I've proven that by setting this string to be a constant. You can't change a constant. To create a substring, you take the string, use the built-in slice method, then you can list starting or ending indices. And well everybody, that is string slicing in JavaScript. What's up everybody? So in today's video I got explained the concept of method chaining in JavaScript. Method chaining is a programming technique. It's where you call one method after another in one continuous line of code. I'll give you two examples of the same program, one that uses no method chaining, and another that does. Then we'll be able to see some of the benefits of method chaining. What we'll do in the first version of this program is create a variable for a username, and I will ask the user for some input using window.prompt. The text will be, enter your username. After typing in some username, I would like to trim any white space around the username, take the first character, make it uppercase, take all of the other characters, make them all lowercase, and then display the output. So this program will have a few steps. Let's reassign our username equal to username, use the trim method to remove any white space before or after the name. Then I will get the first character of my username to capitalize it. We'll create a variable of let letter equals our username. Follow this with the char @ method, the character at index 0. Letter is going to be a variable. It will hold the first letter of my username. To make my letter uppercase, I will reassign it. Letter equals letter. Use the to uppercase method to make that letter uppercase. Now with the rest of the characters, I would like to make them lowercase, anything besides the first character. I will create a separate variable for extra characters. Let's say extra chars, short for characters, equals, take our original username, use the slice method. We will slice our username everything after the first character. If my name was brocode, and I created a slice of everything but the first character, extra characters would be row code without the B. So then let's take our extra characters, make them all lowercase. Extra characters equals extra characters, followed with the to lowercase method. Then we will combine the first letter, which is uppercase, and the extra characters, which are lowercase. Then store them within our username. Username equals our letter plus the extra characters. Then we will display our username. Console.log, our username. So this program does have a lot of steps. We will run this program, enter your username. I will enter a few white spaces, type in my name, but I'll mix up the capitalization. Press OK, and there's my username. The first letter is uppercase, The rest of the letters are lowercase. So this program does work, but it is a lot to write. Now with method chaining, we can combine some of these steps together and avoid creating variables that we don't need, such as letter and extra characters. So with method chaining, what we'll do is start to combine some of these steps. After getting our username, we will take our username equals take our username again, use the trim method. We're not going to end this method with a semicolon. We're going to end it with a dot to write another method. After trimming the username, get the character at index 0. And then why stop there? Let's method chain again. Make that letter uppercase, following the toUpperCase method. So this will work. It's kind of like in a video game, how you can have a combo. Well, this is a 3-hit combo. Boom, boom, boom. Take our username, trim it, get the first character, and then make it uppercase. All in one line of code. Not only that, let's use some string concatenation. We need to take the rest of the characters in my username, make them all lowercase, then combine them together. Again, let's take our username, use the trim method, method chain, the slice method. Slice the string after the first character. Then method chain again, use the toLowercase method. And that should work. Console.log, my username. We're using a lot less lines of code. And I'll zoom out just so you can see everything. Enter your username, I'll throw in some white spaces, then mix up the capitalization. And that has appeared to work. So that's method chaining. It's a programming technique where you can call one method right after another in one continuous line of code. It's like a video game combo, so to say. So in this case, trim our username, give me the first character, and then make it uppercase. We did method chaining here, here, and then we combined the results using string concatenation, which is something separate entirely. By using method chaining, this helps you avoid creating named variables, but if your method chain is too long, it can become difficult to read. Like here, I am kind of pushing the limits. And well, everybody, that is method chaining in JavaScript. Hey, it's me. So today I'm going to explain logical operators. There's 3 of them. And, or, not. They're used to combine or manipulate Boolean values. Boolean values, if you remember, are true or false. Let's create a program. Const temp, meaning temperature. What I would like to do is see if my temperature falls within a certain range. This will be in Celsius. Let's say the temperature is 20 degrees Celsius. Without using any logical operators, let's write this. If our temp is greater than 0, then we will console.log the weather is good. Else if the temperature is less than or equal to 30 degrees Celsius, we will also output the weather is good. Else the weather is bad. Currently my temperature is 20 degrees Celsius. The weather is good. What if I were to change this to something ridiculous like 200 degrees Celsius? Well, the weather is obviously not good. Earth probably got hit by an asteroid or something. Or if I were to change my temperature to like negative 100 degrees Celsius, well, the weather isn't good either. I don't know, maybe the sun disappeared. So what I want to do is output the weather is good only if my temperature falls between the range of 0 and 30. So we're going to change this program. If our temperature is greater than 0, and we'll check another condition, and our temperature is greater than or equal to 30, then we can eliminate this else if clause. Now let's check the temperature. Our temperature is negative 100 degrees Celsius. Well, the weather is bad. If our temperature was 200 degrees Celsius, the weather is also bad. In order for us to execute this if statement, both these conditions need to be true. This one and this one. To join two conditions, you use double ampersand, meaning and. If our temperature was 25, well, that falls within our range. the weather is good. This is true, and this is true, so we will execute this code. If one of these was false, we don't execute it at all. We'll skip over it. So that is the AND logical operator. You can check more than one condition. You can check one thing and something else. Now there's OR, which is double straight bars. With the OR logical operator, at least one of these conditions needs to be true. This has to be true, or that has to be true. If I were to run the same program, well then the weather is good. Let's change the temperature to 250. The weather is good, but it's not. It shouldn't be. So let's rewrite this program. If our temp is less than or equal to 0, or the temperature is greater than 30, then the weather is bad. Else, the weather is good. Our temperature is 250, the weather is bad. Negative 250, the weather is also bad. So with the OR logical operator, we're checking more than one condition. Is this true? Yes, it is. Negative 250 is less than 0. Or is this condition true? This one is false. But since at least one of these is true, we will execute this code. Then we will cover the NOT logical operator. Let's create a new program. Const is sunny. Is it sunny outside? This will be true or false. We will create an if statement. Our condition will be, is sunny. Is this true? If it is, we will console.log it is sunny. Else, we will console.log it is cloudy. Is sunny is set to true. It is sunny. If this were false, then it is cloudy. Using the NOT logical operator, we can flip a Boolean from true to false or false to true. I will precede this Boolean with the NOT logical operator, which is an exclamation point. Now we're checking if it's not sunny. Then we will console.log it is cloudy. Else, it is sunny. Is it not sunny outside? It is cloudy. Let's change this to be true. It is sunny. So basically, the NOT logical operator, it'll change true to be false and false to be true. All right, everybody, so that's a short topic today. Logical operators. They're used to combine or manipulate Boolean values. Use AND to check to see if at least two conditions are true. With OR, at least one condition needs to be true. And with NOT will do the opposite. And well, that is an introduction to logical operators in JavaScript. So, yeah, it's me again. So today I'm going to explain the strict equality operator, which is represented by 3 equal signs. Before we dive in, let me make a few important distinctions. A single equal sign is the assignment operator. You usually see it when you assign a value to a variable. The comparison operator, 2 equal signs, is used to compare two values to see if they're equal. Now, the strict equality operator has a whopping 3 equal signs. It not only compares if two values are equal, but if they have the same data type as well. Let me give you a demonstration. Suppose we have a constant named pi. Pi equals 3.14. Pi in my example has a data type of number. I'll create an if statement. We will check if pi is equal to the string 3.14. If it is, let's console.log that is pi. Else, we will console.log that is not pi. Is the number 3.14 equal to the string 3.14? Well, according to JavaScript, that is pi. That's because we're using the comparison operator. We don't care about the data type. We only care about the value. Are the values equal? Now, if I was using the strict equality operator, which is 3 equal signs, well then JavaScript tells me that this is not pi, because with the strict equality operator, not only do we compare the values, but we also compare the data types as well. These values are both 3.14, but this one is a number data type, and we're comparing it to a string, so they don't match technically. If we were strictly comparing the number 3.14 to the number 3.14, well then we have a match. That is pi. One case where this is pretty helpful is when you accept user input, because user input tends to be a string data type. And then just as an extra measure, you can use the strict equality operator and then be sure that the value is a number data type. There's also the inequality operator. It will return true if two values are not equal. So let's take... Shut up. This time we will examine if pi does not equal the string 3.14. If these are not equal, this condition will evaluate to be true. So this is not pi, else this is pi. Is the number 3.14 not equal to the string 3.14? Well, that is pi still. Using the inequality operator, these values are still the same. The inequality operator will return false. Then there's the strict inequality operator. An exclamation point and two equal signs. Are the values or the data type different? So in this example, that is not pi. They have the same values, but the data type is different. If I turned my variable pi into a string, well, that is pi now. The string 3.14 stored within pi does equal the string 3.14, so this condition turns out to be false. So we execute the else statement. It might take you a little bit of time to get used to this, and that's okay. It is a little odd. But just in case you see these in the future, you'll at least be familiar with them. From now on, we will try and use the strict equality operator if we can. And well, everybody, that is the strict equality operator, and I guess, well, the inequality operator and strict inequality operator in JavaScript. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So today I'm going to explain while loops in JavaScript. A while loop will repeat some code while some condition is true. Take this program, for example. We have a variable username. If our username is equal to an empty string, then we will console.log you didn't enter your name. Else console.log hello username. If I run this program, then check within our console, well, we didn't enter our username. Now, if I were to change this program to a while loop, while our username is equal to an empty string, repeat this line of code forever, until this condition is no longer true. Then when we escape the while loop, we can print the message, hello username. This is what happens when I run the program. We just print this line of code forever, and my computer is probably going to crash. I can't seem to stop. Help! Okay, I think it broke. A while loop will continue some code infinitely while this condition is true. If it no longer is true, then we can escape the while loop. If I were to set my username to be something other than an empty string, well, we never actually enter the while loop. We skip over it entirely and go straight to console.log at the end. So what we do first is check the condition. If it's true, then we get sucked into the while loop and execute this forever. You usually want some sort of way to exit the while loop while you're in it. Otherwise, you get what is known as an infinite loop. So let's rewrite this program. Let username equal an empty string. While our username is strictly equal to an empty string, let's ask the user to enter in their name. Username equals, I'll use a window prompt. Enter your name. Okay, let's try this again. Enter your name. I'll press OK. We can't seem to close this window until we type in something. You can see I'm clicking on OK, nothing's happening. I will type in my name, press OK. Then our console displays, hello, whatever your name is. So that's a benefit of a while loop. Repeat some code until this condition is no longer true. Since we populated our username was not equal to an empty string. We filled username with some characters. What if I instead press cancel? Hello, null. Null means no value. Username will equal null if I press the cancel button. Let's append this condition. Or, username is strictly equal to null. Now, I shouldn't be able to continue until I type in something, and I can't escape if I hit cancel. While one of these conditions is true, execute this code forever. Let's type in our name again, and now we can escape the while loop. There's also another variation of a while loop. It's known as a do while loop. How that works is that you can move while and the condition to the end. So we'll place it here. Then precede the set of curly braces with do. So we will always execute this code at least once, then check the condition at the end. Using a do while loop, I don't necessarily need to set the username. I can set it to be undefined. If I set my username to be undefined, then use a standard while loop, we never execute the while loop. Our username equals undefined. It doesn't equal an empty string or the value null, so we skip over the while loop entirely. So a do while loop is another variation of a while loop. Do the code first, then check the condition at the end. So there's a few different ways you can write the same program. Alright, let's go over another example. We'll create three variables: let, logged, in. Logged in will be false to begin with. To log in, we have to type in a matching username. I will declare a username but not assign it, and a password. So let's create a while loop. How do we escape the while loop? Let's say while not. I'll use the not logical operator. While not logged in. Once we're logged in, once this is true, we escape the while loop. We will ask a user for their username. Username equals window.prompt. Enter your username. Let's ask for a password as well. Password equals enter your password. I'll add an if statement within the while loop. We'll check to see if our username is strictly equal to, then make up some username. My user name. And if our password is strictly equal to some password, like my password. If our username and password both match these values, then we can log in. So logged in will equal true. Then I'll console.log a confirmation message. You are logged in. Else, let's console.log another message. Invalid credentials. Please try again. All right, let's see if this works. Enter your username. I am just going to press OK. Enter your password. I'll type in something legitimate, so I'll type in my password. Invalid credentials. Please try again. That's because I didn't type in a username. I'll type in my username. Be sure it matches. My username. My password. And we are now logged in. So since we set logged in to be true, when we go back to the beginning of our while loop, this condition is no longer true, while not logged in. But since we're logged in, we escape the while loop. Now another variation of this is the do while loop. Let's cut the condition along with while, add it to the end, then add do to the beginning. So we'll check to see if we're logged in at the end. It pretty much does the same thing, but with one exception. In this program, how this is different is that I can set logged in to be true to begin with. We'll still receive that prompt. I'll type in my username, type in my password. We are currently logged in, so we do not continue the while loop. If we used a standard while loop, and we begin by being logged in, well, we never ask for any of this. We never enter the while loop. While not logged in, do all of this. But since we are logged in, we don't do any of it. Alright everybody, so that's while loops. Repeat some code while some condition is true. While some condition remains true, execute this code forever until it's no longer true. And well everybody, that's while loops in JavaScript. Alright, what's going on people? So today I'm going to discuss for loops. A for loop will repeat some code a limited amount of times. With a while loop can repeat some code infinitely. With the for loop, we can do something a certain or limited amount of times. Here's an example. Let's say we would like to display the word hello 3 times. With the for loop, we can write something like this. Now to create a for loop, type for, parentheses, curly braces. Within the set of parentheses, we have up to 3 statements. The first is that we can create a temporary counter, much like we're assigning a variable. Let's create a counter named I. Let I. I is a common naming convention for counters within a loop, I meaning index. So let I equal, what number would we like to start at? Let's start at 0, then semicolon. This is the first statement. We'll create a counter to keep track of the number of iterations. The next statement is the condition in which we continue the for loop. We will continue this for loop as long as I is less than or equal to 2. That's if we're going to execute this for loop 3 times. 0, 1, 2. That would be a total of 3. Then the third statement, we can increment or decrement our counter I. So let's increment our counter by 1 during each iteration by typing I++. And that's a for loop. I is set to 0, will continue as long as I is less than or equal to 2. Then during each iteration, we will increment I by 1. That means we will execute this for loop 3 times. What are we going to do when we execute each iteration? Let's console.log hello. So this should display the word hello 3 times. Yep, hello 3. Now if I were to instead console.log I, we can see what I is. So during the first iteration, I, our counter, is 0, then 1, then 2. If I wanted to count up to 10, I could change my condition to be this. I is less than 10. So we begin at 0, then we count up to 9. So if I need 1 through 10, I'll set I in the beginning to be 1, then continue as long as I is less than or equal to 10. There, so we have numbers 1 through 10 using a for loop. We can even increment by a different number. Instead of incrementing our counter by 1, let's increment by 2. So I plus equals 2. So then we should count up by 2's. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. If I want to start at 2, I can change our counter to start at 2. Count from 2 to 10, but increment by 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. If we would like to count down, let's start at 10, then count down to 0. Let I equal 10. We'll continue as long as I is greater than 0. Then I minus minus to decrement. Hey, for fun, after we escape the for loop, let's console.log Happy New Year. It's as if we're counting down to midnight on New Year's Eve. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. Or we could count down by 2. I minus equals 2. 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. Or 3. Or whatever number. 10, 7, 4, 1, Happy New Year, or whatever number you want. Now I'm going to cover continue and break. This time we will count to 20. We need a for loop. We'll create a counter. Let I equal, I'll set I to be 1. That's our first statement. Our condition is we'll continue as long as I is less than or equal to 20, then increment I by 1 during each iteration. So to test this, let's console.log I. So we have the numbers 1 through 20. So with continue, we can skip an iteration. I'm going to write an if statement. If I is equal to, now there is a superstition that 13 is an unlucky number. Let's say if I is equal to 13, we will skip that iteration. I know it's a weird example. So if I is equal to 13, let's continue. Continue will skip this iteration of the loop. Else, we will console.log whatever I is. So now when I run this program, we skip over 13. We jump from 12 to 14. So if you ever need to skip an iteration, you can use the continue keyword. Now there's break. Break will break out of the loop entirely. We've seen this keyword in switches to break out of the switch. If I equals 13, then just exit the for loop entirely. So in this example, we count up to 12, but since I now equals 13, we break out of the loop entirely. We don't continue the rest of the iterations. Alright everybody, so those are for loops. You can repeat some code a limited amount of times. There's up to 3 statements we can write. We can create a temporary variable that serves as a counter, a condition in which we should continue, then we can increment or decrement our counter. And those are for loops in JavaScript. Hey, what's going on everybody? In this video, we're going to create a number guessing game using JavaScript. So why don't you go ahead and sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, let's get started everybody. So the first thing that we're gonna need is to set the minimum and the maximum numbers in our number guessing game. So we'll create 2 constants. Const min num for the minimum. I will set my minimum to be 1, but feel free to pick a different number if you would like. Then a maximum. Const max num. I will set my maximum to be 100. So what we got to do is generate a random number between our minimum and our maximum, inclusively. So let's create another constant. Const answer. Then we'll generate a random number between 1 and 100, our minimum and our maximum. To do that, we can type math.random. The random method of math will generate a random number between 0 and 1. We will multiply this by, within a set of parentheses, the range between our maximum minus our minimum. Then add +1. Let's see what we have so far. Just to test everything, I'm going to console.log our answer. Okay, let's inspect, go to console. Here's my answer currently. 56 point, and then a bunch of decimal places after. I will round our answer by enclosing this equation with math.floor to round down. Okay, let's see what we get again. 39, 89, 20, 71, 27, 17, 46. Okay, that seems like it's working. What if we have a higher minimum? Let's say between 50 and 100. Well, I have 7, 22, 43, numbers that are below our minimum. So if we have a minimum besides 1, I will add to the end of this equation our minimum again. Okay, let's see if that works. So if I need a random number between 50 and 100, this equation should work. 97, 80, 79, 52. All right, that seems like it's working. So this is the equation you'll need to generate a random number between your minimum that you set and your maximum. But let's change our minimum back to 1 and make sure our maximum is 100. All right, let's move on to step 2. We'll create a variable named attempts to keep track of the attempts it takes a user. I will set attempts to be 0 and let guess. I will declare this variable but not assign it quite yet. We'll take care of that later. I will also create a Boolean variable named running, and I will set this to be true. The reason that we have the Boolean variable running is so that we can exit the game when it's over. We'll set running to equal false. So to keep the game running, we'll use a while loop. While running equals true. Now, if this is a Boolean variable, you don't necessarily need this portion, equals true. You can just set this to be while running. While this Boolean is true, keep the game going. Then when we want to exit the game, we will set running to equal false. So that will be at the end. Now we need to accept some user input. I'll do this with the window prompt. We will set our guess to equal window.prompt. I'll use a template literal. Guess a number between, I'll add a placeholder, our minimum, through, add another placeholder, our maximum. All right, to test this, I'm going to console.log the type of guess, as well as what guess is. There's something I need to show you. Guess a number between 1 and 100. I'll guess something right in the middle, 50. Let's inspect, go to console. So my user input of 50 is a string data type. We'll need to convert it to a number for comparisons. So after we get our guess, let's reassign it and typecast it as a number type. Let's try that again. Guess a number between 1 and 100. I'll type 50. Okay. Inspect, console. We have our guess of 50, and it's a number data type. What if you were to type in something that wasn't a number? Like a string of characters such as pizza. Here's the result. If you typecast some characters that are non-numeric, you know the numbers 0 through 9, you'll end up with not a number. Pizza can't be converted to a number, unfortunately. I will delete this line of code. We no longer need it. I'll add an if statement. There's a function to check to see if something is not a number. Is not a number function. If our guess is not a number, if this evaluates to be true, let's add an alert. Window.alert. Please enter a valid number. Guess a number between 1 and 100. What if I type pizza? Please enter a valid number. Now, what if somebody types in a guess that's below our minimum or above our maximum? I'll add an else if statement. Else if our guess is below our minimum or our guess is above our maximum. Will window.alert please enter a valid number again? Guess a number between 1 and 100. What if I type in 150? That's above our maximum. Please enter a valid number. Please enter a number between 1 and 100. -1. Please enter a valid number. If the user's guess is a number, and it's between our range, between the minimum and the maximum, we'll execute an else statement. If they reach the else statement, that means they have a valid number. We'll increase our attempts variable by 1. Attempts ++ to increment it. If the guess is less than the answer, then will window.alert too low. Try again. Else if the guess is greater than the answer, will window.alert too high. Try again. If the guess isn't lower than the answer, and the guess isn't higher than the answer, that means the guess must equal the answer. Within an else statement, we'll congratulate the user. They have the right answer. Window.alert correct. The answer was, and I should probably use a template literal for this if we're inserting variables. The answer. We'll let the user know how many attempts it took. It took you the variable attempts, then the word attempts. At the end of our else statement, we'll move running equals false to within the else statement at the end to exit the game. We no longer want to play once we have the correct answer. All right, and this should work. Let's try it. Guess a number between 1 and 100. I'll guess something right in the middle, 50. Too low, try again. Okay, so the answer is between 50 and 100. 75. Too high. So it's between 50 and 75. 62. Too low. 68. Too high. So it's between 62 and 68. 65. Too high. 63. Too low. 64. Yeah, correct. The answer was 64. It took you 7 attempts. And we can exit. All right, everybody, so that is a number guessing game in JavaScript. Hey, welcome back. So today I gotta explain functions in JavaScript. A function is a section of reusable code. You declare that code once, and you can use it whenever you want. All you have to do is call the function to execute that code. Here's an example. We'll create a function to sing happy birthday. Whenever we call this function, it's gonna sing happy birthday. So to declare a function, you type function, a unique function name. Let's name our function happy birthday, because it's, well, the happy birthday function. Then you add a set of parentheses, then you add a set of curly braces. Any code we write between this set of curly braces, we can reuse whenever we want. So what do we want to do exactly with this function? I'll create the lyrics to my own happy birthday song. Console.log happy birthday to you. Let's repeat that again. Happy birthday, dear you. Happy birthday to you. Trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. So we have a function. When we run the program, it currently doesn't do anything. To execute this code within the function, we have to call the function by its name, happy birthday. Then add a set of parentheses. So now we should execute this code. Yep, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear you, happy birthday to you. So to call a function, you type the function name, then you add a set of parentheses. I like to think of the parentheses as two telephones talking to each other. That's how I remember it. So if I were to call this function again, what do you think's going to happen? Well, we're going to execute this function twice. 3 times? We'll execute it 3 times. As many times as I want, in fact. That's what a function is. It's a section of reusable code. Reuse it whenever you want. You just have to call it. You can send a function some values or variables. Let's change our happy birthday function. I will turn this line into a template literal. Let's replace you with the placeholder. Then we'll add a username. I'll add one more line. We'll use a template literal. You are, insert a placeholder, age, years old. So when I run this program, we have an uncaught reference error. Username is not defined at happy birthday. So our happy birthday function doesn't know what our username is or the age. So we can send some information to the function when we call it. So within the set of parentheses, what would we like to send this function? Let's send our name. So whatever values you place within the function, be sure to comma separate them. So why don't you go ahead and send the happy birthday function a name and an age. But there's one step missing. These are known as arguments. They're data that you send a function, but you need a matching set of parameters within the parentheses of the declaration. In a way, we can define some temporary variables, and they're all comma separated. We will define a username parameter, as well as age. Now this function should work properly. Happy birthday, dear bro code, you are 25 years old. So these are parameters, and what you send to the function are arguments. Let's call the function, but send different information. Happy birthday. How about SpongeBob? SpongeBob will be, I don't know how old he is according to SpongeBob lore, but let's say he's 30 years old. Happy birthday, dear SpongeBob. You are 30 years old. How about Patrick this time? It's his birthday. Everybody gets a birthday. Patrick will be 37. Happy birthday, dear Patrick. You are 37 years old. So that's a benefit of passing arguments to a function. When the function receives this data, it can do something with it. Now, the order of the parameters does matter. If I were to switch age and username, here's what happens. Happy birthday, dear 37. You are Patrick years old. With the arguments that you're passing to your function, you'll want to be sure that the parameters match up. All right, now I'm going to cover the return keyword. We'll create a few other function examples. We'll create a function to add 2 numbers. Function add. Then we'll need 2 arguments, which we will name x and y. So when we invoke this function, I would like to add x and y together. I'll create a temporary variable named result, just to store the result. Result equals x plus y. So I'm going to add two numbers together. Let's add 2 and 3 together, and let's see what happens. Well, nothing appears to happen. Well, we can send some data back to the place in which we call a function, but we need to use this return keyword. Let's return the result. So 2 plus 3 should be 5. After this function resolves, think of this function becoming the value 5. So we'll probably want to do something with that value. I'll store that within a variable. Let answer equal add 2 and 3. Then let's console.log the answer, which should be 5. When you return something from a function, after you resolve the function, think of it as becoming whatever is returned. In this case, it's our result. Or otherwise, I can place this function within console.log if we don't plan to store it at all. So add 2 and 3, then display the result, which is 5. There is a shortcut too. You don't necessarily need to declare a variable within this function. We could shorten this to return x plus y. That is also valid, so that should return 5. Okay, let's create a subtract function. Function subtract will return x minus y, but we need a matching set of parameters because I forgot that. Okay, let's see what happens when we subtract 3 from 2. That'll give us -1. Let's multiply. Function multiply. We'll multiply x and y together. Return x times y. We will multiply 2 times 3, which is 6. Divide. We need parameters x and y. Then return x divided by y. Then we will invoke the divide function, pass in 2 and 3. And the result is 0.666 repeating. Let's go over a more complex example. We'll create a function to determine if a number is even or odd. Here's the function. Function is even. We have one parameter, a number. So when we invoke the function, we'll have to pass in a number. So when we receive a number, how do we check to see if this number is even? Here's one solution. We'll use an if statement. If our number modulus 2. Modulus gives you the remainder of any division. If this number divides by 2 evenly, if this is equal to 0, and yes, I'm using the strict equality operator, I'm trying to use that more often. If our number is divisible by 2, then let's return the Boolean value true. Else we'll return false. Okay. Let's console.log. Let's check to see if a number is even. Let's start with 10. Is 10 even? That is true. How about 11? That is false. 12? 12 is even. So that's kind of cool. If you would like a shortcut for this, you can use the ternary operator. That would look something like this. We are going to return then a condition. What are we checking? Is our number modulus 2 strictly equal to 0? Question mark. So that is the ternary operator, the question mark. If it is true, then we will return a Boolean value of true, colon, false, if it's false. Is 12 even? That is true. Is 13 even? No, it's not. It's odd. How about 14? That is true. All right, last example. I think we're probably getting the hang of this now. We'll create a function to see if an email is valid. Function is valid email. What kind of information are we going to send? We'll set that up as a parameter. We will need an email. We'll invoke the isValidEmail function, and pass in an email. Why don't you type in your email? I'll just make one up. bro@fake.com. So when we invoke this function, this string of text will become our email. We'll check to see if our email contains the @ character. We'll use an if statement. If email, and there's a built-in method for this, the includes method. If our email includes the @ character, then we will return true. That is a valid email. They have the @ character. Else, we will return false. Is my email valid? That is true. Let's remove the @ character. brofake.com. Maybe it's a website or something. That is false. Let's try another email. Again, we're going to invoke the function is valid email. elonmusk.com. Don't actually go there. I don't know what's going to pop up. That is not a valid email. All right, how about Zuckerborg@meta.com? That is a valid email. It contains an @ character. And for something like this, if we're returning either true or false, we can use the ternary operator. Return. Then our condition is we're going to check if our email includes the @ character. Then add the ternary operator. If this is true, return true. Else, we will return false. So these should be the same, which they are. All right, everybody, so that's an introduction to functions. It's a section of reusable code. You declare some code once and use it whenever you want. You call the function to execute that code. If you need to send your function some data, you'll need a matching set of arguments and parameters. And you can return something too with the return keyword. We'll have more practice with this in the future, don't worry. And that is an introduction to functions in JavaScript. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So today I'm going to explain variable scope in JavaScript. Variable scope is where a variable is recognized and accessible. In this beginner's tutorial, we'll be discussing the differences between a local scope and a global scope. Suppose we have a variable. Let x equals 1. Each variable name needs to be unique within that scope. I couldn't declare another variable named x, where I set x to equal 2. If I were to run this, we have a syntax error. Identifier x has already been declared. You can reuse the same variable names in your program as long as they're within different scopes. To demonstrate, let's create two functions. Function1. Within function1, we will declare a variable x. X equals 1, then we will console.log whatever x is. Then let's create function2 by copying function1 and then paste it. Function2, x will equal 2, console.log x. If I were to invoke function1, x equals 1. If I were to invoke function2, well, x equals 2. So we have two variables with the same name in our program. That's legal as long as they have different scopes. Any variable declared inside of a function has a local scope, or anytime you declare a variable within a set of curly braces. There's no naming conflicts because they're within different scopes. That way you can declare variables with the same name, which we've done with x. Now functions can't see inside of other functions. Within function2, we will declare variable y equals 2. Then console.log x. Within function1, we will console.log y. If I were to invoke function1, we have an uncaught reference error. Y is not defined at function1. Functions can't see inside of other functions. Function1 has no idea what y is. We've declared that within another function. It's kind of like functions are neighboring houses. You can't necessarily see inside of your neighbor's house. Function1 has no idea what variable y is. Likewise, function2, if I were to invoke it, function2 has no idea what x is. Each of these variables are declared inside of a function, so they have a local scope. A global scope for a variable is any variable declared outside of a function. With function1, let's get rid of x, and we will console.log x. Function 2, we will get rid of y, console.log x. If I were to declare a variable outside of these functions, let x equal 3, I'll invoke function 1, we'll display x. X is 3. Let's invoke function 2. X is 3. Any variable declared outside of a function has a global scope. It's available through the whole program. A global variable is recognized and accessible from anywhere. Hey, this is Bro from the future. I was editing this video and I thought of a really good analogy for global variables. Let's say that a function is a house. We live in function 1 and our neighbor lives in function 2. We can see inside of function 1, but we can't see inside of our neighbor's house at function 2. Anything that's declared in the global scope isn't found within any houses, it's outside. Everybody can plainly see it. It's kind of like a creepy stalker that's under a streetlight at 3 in the morning. Everybody, while inside of their house, can still see everything outside. That's an analogy I thought was kind of accurate to describe a global scope. However, it's not recommended to declare global variables in a large program, just because you can have naming conflicts. In a large program, I might accidentally reuse the variable x or change it somewhere. X is a very common name for a variable. So in a large program, I would stick with local variables. But in a small program like this, it's fine. When inside of a function, we'll use any local instance of a variable first. If it's not found, we'll look at the global scope. So within function 1, let's declare x to be 1. Within function 2, we'll declare x to be 2. And then within the global scope, we have x equals 3. If I were to declare function 1, do you think x will equal 1 or 3? Well, it's 1. If we have two variables with the same name, and they're in different scopes, we'll use the local version first. That's why x is 1 and not 3. If I were to invoke function 2, well, x equals 2. If these local variables weren't available, we would use the global version instead, where x equals 3. Alright everybody, so that is variable scope. It's where a variable is recognized and accessible. You have a local scope. That's any time a variable is declared within a set of curly braces. That variable is then only accessible to anything within that set of curly braces. And a global scope is where a variable is declared outside of any functions. It's available throughout the whole program. And well everybody, that is variable scope in JavaScript. Hey, what's going on everybody? In today's video, we're going to create a temperature conversion program using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Alright, let's begin everybody. We will begin within our HTML file. Make sure you've linked a script to your JavaScript file, which we'll fill in later. So within the body of our document, we will create a form element. Within our form, we will create an h1 heading for the title of this program, which we will name temperature conversion is good. After our h1 element, we'll create an input element. This is a self-closing tag. It's a text box. Since we're going to be converting temperatures, I will set the type to be number. So that should give us some arrows to increase or decrease the number, or type one in if we need to. I'm going to give this text box an ID of text box. We'll be referring to this text box by its ID later. I'm also going to go ahead and set an initial value of 0. Then we can increase or decrease the number, like I said before. It is a little small, but with CSS, we will increase the size. What I'm going to do now is create two radio buttons, along with labels. So we have input. Input is a self-closing tag. The type will be radio. And for the ID, this will be a radio button to convert to Fahrenheit. I can never spell Fahrenheit. We'll want the radio buttons in the same group. I will set the name of the group to be unit. Oh, looks like I misspelled type. There we go. So I'm going to place our radio button on a new line. So within our first input element, I will add a line break. Alright, so after our first radio button, I'll create a label for it. Label. This label will be for to Fahrenheit. And the text will be Celsius to Fahrenheit. Or if you prefer, you could create like an arrow. I don't really like the look of that. Let me use an emoji instead. So on Windows, to create an emoji, you can hold Windows and semicolon. Is there an arrow? That'll work. So when you click on the label, you should also be able to select the radio button. That's because the for attribute is the same as the ID attribute of the radio button. Okay, let's copy both the first radio button and the label, then paste it. But change Fahrenheit to Celsius. Let's switch these around. Fahrenheit to Celsius. To Celsius. I'm also going to add a line break after our first label. So right here. As well as here. Google wants to translate my webpage from German to English. It's probably because of the word Fahrenheit, I'm guessing. Now I'll create a button. The type will be button. The text will be submit. There is an on-click attribute for buttons. On-click. When we click on this button, we can execute a JavaScript function. Eventually, we'll be creating a function named convert. Actually, let's take care of that now before we forget. So within our JavaScript file, function convert. We'll fill this in later. So when we click on the button, we will execute the convert function. Then lastly, we're going to display a result, whatever the new temperature is. We'll use a paragraph element. The ID will be result. And just as a placeholder for now, I'm going to type select a unit. Alright, so far so good. Let's style this program with CSS now. Be sure to save your HTML file. We'll move on to CSS. We will first change the body of our document. Let's change the font family of the body of our document. I'll pick Arial with a backup of sans serif. I'll change the background color too. Background-color. I like using HSL values. Let's type a color such as black. We will change the color to be HSL. I'll go with a very light gray color, like 95%. So the background is going to be slightly light gray. We'll fill in the form section to be pure white. We will select our H1 element. That's going to be the header. I'll pick a color. Again, I'll be using HSL values. Let's go with, I don't know, blue. Feel free to pick a different color if you would like. That's not bad. Then we'll fill in the form. Our form contains pretty much all of these elements. So let's select our form. I will change the background color. I'll just copy this line and paste it. But I'll make this pure white. I'll text align center everything within this form. So everything should be centered. I'll set a max width of the form because right now it's taking up 100% of the width of the web browser. So max width will be, how about 350 pixels? We would like this form to be within the middle, aligned horizontally. We can set margin to be auto to automatically center that. I'll add a little bit of padding around the elements within our form. Padding. Let's do 25 pixels. I'll smooth the corners of the form using border radius. Border radius, 10 pixels. Then I'll add a box shadow. Box shadow. The first value is the horizontal offset. Let's set that to be 5 pixels. Then the vertical offset, I will set that to be 5 pixels. The third value is the blur radius, because right now it's fairly concentrated. Let's stick with 15 pixels. Not bad. You can also select a color. Again, I'm going to use HSL values. You can also change the transparency. I'll set mine to be 30%, or approximately 30%. 0.3. Not bad. So that's my box shadow. Now we're going to change the text box. So this text box does have an ID. Text box. Let's select this element by its ID. I'll set the width to be 50%. It's going to take up 50% of the width available. Let's text align center. The number is going to be right in the middle. Let's change the font size. Let's do 2EM for 200%. I'll add a border. 2 pixels solid. Then I'll pick some HSL values for the color. I'll make it a little transparent. Maybe like 80%. Let's select a border radius. 4 pixels to smooth the corners. I'll add a little bit of margin below the text box. Margin dash bottom. 15 pixels is good. That's going to push the radio buttons down further, just to give this text box more space. Let's work on the radio buttons next. So we are selecting the labels. So let's take every label. I'll change the font size so it's a little bigger. 1.5 EM for 150%. I'll make the font weight bold, just to bold it. There. Let's select our button. We are selecting our button. I'll add a little bit of margin above the button. Margin dash top, 15 pixels. Let's change the background color of the button. Pick a color. I'll pick red. And again, I'm going to use HSL values because I like them. That's decent. I'll change the font size of the button, 1.5 EM for 150%. I'll remove the border, border none. I'll add some padding. 10 pixels for the top and bottom of the button, 15 for the sides. I'll round the corners with border radius. Border radius, 5 pixels. I'm going to change the font color. Color, white. Then when I hover my cursor over the button, I will change the cursor to be a pointer. And that appears to work now. So when I hover over the button, I'll use the hover pseudo class to change the background color of the button. We are selecting our button, then select the hover pseudo class. We'll make the background color just a little bit darker. We'll change the lightness of our HSL value to be like 10% darker. So I have 60%, I'll change that to be 50. So now the background should change when I hover over the button. Lastly, let's change the CSS properties of the result. So this should have an ID of result. Result. I'll make the font size a little bit bigger. Font size 1.75 EM is good. And I'll make the font weight bold. Font weight bold. Alright, and that is all the CSS we need. Be sure to save everything, and then we will move on to our JavaScript file. Alright, so what I like to do is at the top of my JavaScript program, I will declare all of the constants and variables that I'll need. So let's get our text box. I'll set this to be a constant. Const text box equals document.get element by ID. The ID that we're selecting is our text box. We'll need the toFahrenheit radio button. Let's copy this line, paste it. Get the ID of toFahrenheit. Const toFahrenheit, get element by ID, toFahrenheit. Then 2 Celsius. 2 Celsius. Const 2 Celsius. The ID is 2 Celsius. So that will be this radio button. Copy this line, paste it. Then we need the result to display the result. Result, get element by ID, result. Within our HTML file, we don't necessarily need to select a unit anymore. We'll add that later if somebody presses submit without selecting a radio button. Then we need let temp for the temperature. When we click on the submit button, we will execute this function, convert. So what are we going to do within this function? We'll begin with an if statement. We'll check to see if our 2 Fahrenheit radio button is selected. So take 2 Fahrenheit. We'll use the checked property. If this radio button is checked, it's going to return true. If it's not, it's going to be false. Else if 2 Celsius is checked, 2 Celsius.checked, we'll perform some different actions. Else, let's change the content of our result. So here, result.text content equals select a unit. Let's see if this works. Be sure to save everything. I am not going to select a radio button, I'm just going to submit. And that's correct. Select a unit. We didn't select one. Let's be sure that these 2 radio buttons are working. Just temporarily, I'm going to change the result within the if and else if statement. You selected 2 Fahrenheit, and you selected 2 Celsius. I just want to be sure that these radio buttons are working. So let's convert 2 Fahrenheit, submit. You selected 2 Fahrenheit. We'll select the second radio button. You selected 2 Celsius. Okay, we know that this program is reading these radio buttons successfully, so we no longer need these 2 lines of code. We're going to get the number from our text box. We'll store that within temp. Temp for temperature. Temp equals, take our text box, access the value within. So when we accept user input, it's of the string data type. I'm going to typecast the value as a number, so we can use it with math. Okay, then we're going to take our temperature and convert it to Fahrenheit. Here's the formula. Temp equals temp times 9 divided by 5 plus 32. Then we're going to update the text content of the result. Result.textContent equals our temperature. Then I'm going to add plus Fahrenheit. So to add the degree symbol on Windows, you can hold Alt, then type 0176 on the numpad. So this will be Fahrenheit. Let's type 100 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. That gives us 212 degrees Fahrenheit. 10 would be 50. 1 degree Celsius would be 33.8. 0 is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. If you would like to add some precision following our temperature, there's a built-in method, toFixed. We'll add 1 point of precision. This will give us 1 digit past the decimal place. 0 degrees Celsius converted to Fahrenheit is 32.0 degrees Fahrenheit. 10 degrees Celsius is 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's copy these 3 lines, then paste them within the else if statement. We'll keep this line the same, but we'll change the formula. Temp equals, within parentheses, temp minus 32 times 5 divided by 9. Then change Fahrenheit to Celsius. So what is 32 degrees Fahrenheit converted to Celsius? That is 0. 100 is 37.8. All right, everybody, so that is a simple temperature conversion program using JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So today I'm going to explain arrays in JavaScript. Think of an array as a variable-like structure that can hold more than one value. For example, let's say we had a variable named fruit. Go ahead and pick a fruit. I'll pick an apple. Our variable can store one value, but we can turn a variable into an array, and it can store more than one value, and we can do so by enclosing all values with a set of straight brackets. Now my variable of fruit is now an array. It can store more than one value. Just be sure that each value is comma separated. This time I'll add an orange and a banana. Just to make it more obvious that this is an array, I'm going to add an S so that my variable name is plural. It's not mandatory, but it helps with readability. I now have an array of fruits. But let me show you something. If I were to console.log my array of fruits, Well, JavaScript is going to print out all of the elements in this array. Each item, each value, is known as an element. We have 3 elements. If you need to access an individual element, following the array, you have to add an index number, enclosed in straight brackets. If I would like the element at the first position, that would have an index of 0. That would give me an apple. Fruits at index of 1 would be orange. Fruits at index of 2 is banana. If I were to attempt to access the element at index 3, well, it's undefined. We only have 3 elements within our array. 0, 1, 2. Arrays always begin with 0. You can even change one of these elements by accessing that array at a given element. Let's access our array fruits at index 0. I will set this equal to be a coconut. So now we have coconut, orange, banana. Let's change fruits at index 1 to be a coconut. Apple, coconut, banana. Index 2 will be a coconut. Apple, orange, coconut. If I set fruits at index 3 to be a coconut, let me console.log that too. Fruits at index 3. We can add a new element to that array. Otherwise, to add an element, there's a built-in method of arrays. Fruits.push. To push an element to the end. I will add a coconut to the end of my array. Apple, orange, banana, coconut. Then we have pop. Pop is going to remove the last element. Apple, orange, undefined. The unshift method will add an element to the beginning. Take our array, use the unshift method, unshift. I will add a mango to the beginning of my array. Mango, apple, orange, banana. Then we have shift to remove an element from the beginning. Fruits.shift. Now we have an orange, banana, and my last 2 elements are undefined. To get the length of an array, there's a length property. Let's create a new variable. Let num of fruits to store the number of fruits that we have. Type the array name, dot length. Then let's console.log the number of fruits we have. We have 3 fruits. I'll add another. I'll add a coconut to the end. And we have 4. So that's how to get the length of an array. There's a length property. Type the array name, dot length. We can find the index of an element if there's a match. Let index equals, let's search for an apple. Fruits dot index of method. What are we searching for? Let's search for an apple. Then I will display the index. So our apple is located at index 0. Let's search for an orange. That's index 1. Banana. That's 2. Coconut. 3. What if we search for an element that doesn't exist, like a mango? Well, this method will return -1. That could be helpful within an if statement. You can check to see if this method returns -1. Then if it does, that means the element wasn't found, and you can let the user know. If index equals -1, display that element wasn't found. Now, if you would like to loop through the elements and display them, there's an easier way to do that. You can use a for loop. So for, there's up to 3 statements. We'll need a counter or some sort of index. Let I equal 0, that's the first statement. We'll continue this as long as I is less than our fruits array dot length property. Then we will increment I by 1. If we have 4 elements, we should execute this loop 4 times. During each iteration, I will console.log our fruits array, but the index, instead of being like 0, 1, 2, 3, a hard number, we'll use our counter, our index of I. And let's get rid of that line. Now we should loop through all of the elements of this array and print them out individually. Using a for loop, we can even increment by a different number, like 2. I plus equals 2. So here we're only displaying the apple and the banana. If I set index to be 1, then increment by 2, we'll display orange, then coconut. So using a for loop, there's a few different ways in which you can display the elements of an array. If you need to display the order of this array in reverse, we can change this around. We will set our counter I to be the length of our array. Then we'll continue as long as I is greater than or equal to 0, then I minus minus. There's one change I'm going to make. We have undefined coconut, banana, orange, apple. So the length of my array is 4. But if I were to access our array of fruits at index 4, where would that be? 0, 1, 2, 3. That's out of bounds. I'm going to set our index to be fruits.length minus 1. 0, 1, 2, 3. Our length is 4, minus 1 is a total of 3. Now we're printing our array in reverse. Coconut, banana, orange, apple. There's also an enhanced for loop. It's a shortcut to displaying the elements of an array. You can write something like this. Let fruit of our array fruits. Really, this variable can be anything, but I like to write a singular version of my array name. Then during each iteration, I will display each fruit. Apple, orange, banana, coconut. This is an enhanced for loop. It's kind of like a shortcut to displaying the elements of an array. If this array name were, I don't know, like meats, you could say, let meat of meats. And then display each meat. But of course, they're still fruit. That's a shortcut you can use. Now to sort an array, you can use the sort method. Fruits.sort. And that should sort the elements in alphabetical order. Apple, banana, coconut, orange. To sort them in reverse order, you can tack on the reverse method to the end. Fruits.sortMethod.reverse method. Now they're all backwards, in reverse alphabetical order. Orange, coconut, banana, apple. Alright everybody, so that's an introduction to arrays. We'll have a lot of practice with this in the future, so if you don't remember everything, that's okay. An array is a variable-like structure that can hold more than one value. A variable can hold one value. An array can hold many. And well everybody, those are arrays in JavaScript. Hey everybody, today I'm going to explain the spread operator in JavaScript. The spread operator is represented by 3 dots. The spread operator allows an iterable, such as an array or string, to be expanded into separate elements. What this does is unpack the elements. Here's an example. Let's create an array of numbers. Pick some numbers. I'll just pick 1 through 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then just to test this, let's console.log my array numbers. In this array, what if I would like to find the greatest value? Well, one way in which I could do that is let's declare a maximum. Let maximum, this is going to be a variable, equals, I will use the max method of math. What would happen if I place our array within this method? Then I will display our maximum. So we have not a number. Using the max method, we can't place an array directly within this method. However, by utilizing the spread operator, we can spread this array into different elements. So we will precede this array with the spread operator. We are going to unpack the elements. Now if I run this program again, we have our result of 5. When you use the spread operator, imagine that you're opening a box and taking out all the contents inside, like you're unpacking something. Let's find the minimum this time. Let minimum equals math.min. We will pass our array of numbers, then use the spread operator to spread our array into different elements. What is the minimum value from this array? That would be 1. You can also do this with strings too. You can separate a string into different characters. Let's create a username. Equals, type your name. First name and last name. I will create an array named letters. Letters equals, we'll create a new array. Let's take our username, it's a string, and use the spread operator. Then I will display our letters. Console.log letters. And here's my name, divided into different characters. What we have is an array of characters. With my array of characters, I can join them back together and insert characters between each element. I will method chain the join method after our array. We'll add a dash between each character. So now my username is all one string, but there's a dash between each character. Okay, now this time we're going to create an array of fruits. We'll make a shallow copy of an array using the spread operator. add some fruit. I'll add an apple, an orange, and a banana. Then I will console.log my fruits. I can create a shallow copy of this array using the spread operator. A shallow copy means it's a different data structure, but it contains identical values. I'll create a copy of fruits named new fruits equals an array. Let's take our fruits array, then use the spread operator. Let's display new fruits, and it should be an identical copy. Yep, there's no apparent change. We have two different arrays, but they contain identical elements. We can combine two or more arrays using the spread operator. Let's create an array of vegetables. Let's add some carrots, celery, potatoes. I'll rename new fruits as foods. Let's add our array of fruits, we're spreading it, comma, then we will spread our vegetables array. Then we will display our array foods. This array contains all of the elements from these two arrays, fruits and vegetables. We can use the spread operator to combine arrays. We even have the capability to append separate elements along with unpacking these arrays. I will also add eggs and milk. We have all of the elements from our two arrays, plus a few extras, eggs and milk. Alright everybody, so that's the spread operator. It's 3 dots. It allows an iterable, such as an array or string, to be expanded into separate elements. And well everybody, that is the spread operator in JavaScript. Hey, what's going on everybody? Today I'm going to explain REST parameters in JavaScript. REST parameters is a parameter prefixed with 3 dots. They allow a function to work with a variable number of arguments by bundling them into an array. It's very similar to the spread operator, which we talked about in the last video. The spread operator expands an array into separate elements. REST parameters do the opposite. They bundle separate elements into an array. Spread will spread an array into separate elements. REST parameters will bundle separate elements into an array. It effectively does the opposite. How could REST parameters be useful? Let me give you an example. Say we have a bunch of different food. Const food1 equals pizza. We'll create a few different food variables. Let's start with 4. Food1, food2, food3, food4. We have pizza, hamburger, hot dog, and sushi. I'm going to create a function that uses REST parameters. It's going to output all food that I send it. We'll pretend that we're opening a fridge. Imagine that all of this food is in a fridge. Open fridge. Fridge short for refrigerator. To use REST parameters, I need 3 dots. We're going to stick all of this food into an array. But what should the array name be? Let's say foods. That's descriptive. Then I'm going to console.log my array of foods. Now I'm going to call this function open fridge. I will send this function a variable number of arguments. This method is going to display an array. We have food1, pizza, food2, hamburger. Hamburger is also within our array. Food3, hot dog, food4, sushi. Let me add one more food. Let's add ramen. Food5 will be ramen. Then I will add food5. You can see that I can send this function any number of arguments that I would like. This function is designed to accept any number of arguments. I could combine this function with the spread operator. When I'm displaying my foods array, all of these elements are in an array, but I could separate them back into separate elements by using the spread operator, which is the same 3 dots as the REST parameters. REST parameters are used as parameters. The spread operator is used whenever you have an array, or any sort of collection of something. So now when I combine the REST parameters and the spread operator, I can display all of my separate elements. You can even use REST parameters to stick all elements within an array. So this time I'm going to create a separate function to get food. We will use rest parameters. Our array name will be foods. All we're going to do is return foods. Take all of these separate elements, stick them within an array, then return that array. So I'm going to create a new array, const foods equals, call our getFood method, pass in a variable amount of arguments. Let's pass in food1, food2, food3, food4, and food5. And then we got to display it. Console.log myArray foods. So that's how the rest parameters can be used to combine elements and bundle them into an array. Then if you want, you can return the array or do whatever you want with it. Let's go over a second example. We'll create a method to sum a bunch of numbers together. Function sum. We will use rest parameters so we can accept any number of arguments. Our array name will be numbers. What we'll do within this method is have a result. Result equals 0. We'll keep track of the current sum within our result. I'll create a for loop to iterate over our array. For every let number of numbers, take our result plus equals the current number. And then we are going to return our result. Now we'll have const total equals, invoke our sum function, pass in as many numbers as we would like. Let's start with 1. Oh, then I should probably display the total. Console.log. I'll use a template literal. Your total is, I'll add a placeholder, total. Your total is $1. Let's add a few more arguments. 2. The total is now $3. 3, $6. 4 is 10. 5 is 15. Let's create a function to calculate an average. Let's copy our sum function. Let's name this function getAverage. All we have to do when returning our result to get the average is divide our result by the length of our numbers array. Divided by numbers.length property. That will give you the average. So now, const total equals get the average. Maybe these are test scores. One student got a 75, another got 100, another student has 85, 90, and a 50. Let's console.log the total. The average is 80. Let's go over example 3. You can use the rest parameters to combine strings together. We will create a function to combine strings. We'll send in a title, like Mr., a first name, such as SpongeBob, a last name, SquarePants, he's the third. We still need to make this function though, but const full name equals whatever string is returned. All right, let's work on this function. Function combine string. Let's make this plural, strings. We need to use rest parameters. Let's name our array strings. An easy way to do this is to return our array of strings and use the built-in join method to join all of the strings together. But we'll add a space between each string. All right, we should now have a full name variable. That's all of the strings combined. So let's console.log our full name. Mr. SpongeBob SquarePants III. That's one way in which you could use the rest parameters to combine a bunch of strings into one, such as if you're creating a full name. Alright everybody, so those are rest parameters. They allow a function to work with a variable number of arguments by bundling them into an array. It's the opposite of the spread operator. The spread operator expands an array into separate elements. The rest parameters bundle separate elements into an array. And well, everybody, those are REST parameters in JavaScript. Hey everybody, so in today's video we're going to use JavaScript, HTML, and CSS to create a dice roller program. This is an optional project. You will need some images of dice to work with. If you're able to find some images of dice, I would save them somewhere, maybe on your desktop. Once you have images of your dice, we're going to create a new folder. New folder, I'll name my folder dice_images. Then take all of your dice images, move them to that folder. And now we are ready to begin. We'll create all of the HTML elements that we'll need. I will create a div section. This div will have an ID of container to contain our program. I'll include an h1 heading with text of dice roller. After this h1 element, I'll create a label. The label will have text of number of dice. Afterwards, I'll use an input element. I'm going to zoom in a little bit temporarily. With this input element, I'll type in a number of dice I would like, such as 1, 2, 3. However, I can type in characters, which I would like to avoid. I will set the type attribute of the input element to be number. We're indicating to the user to select a number and not type in anything. Although there are ways to circumvent this. This will be good enough for now. For the input element, we can set a default value. I will set the value attribute to equal 1 for the default. We can go below 0. I'll set a minimum with the min attribute. Min equals 1. We can't go below 1, but we can select any number 1 or above. Now we'll create a button. The button will have text of roll dice. The button will have its onClick attribute, I keep on spelling onlick, onClick attribute set to a JavaScript function. Let's say roll dice. We'll still need to define this function in JavaScript. After our button, I'll create two div sections. The first will have an ID of dice result. This will display some text, the numbers of the dice we roll. The second div element will be for the images. ID dice images. And that is all the HTML that we'll need. Let's head to our CSS file, and I'll zoom back to 100%. Let's select our ID of container. Hashtag container. I will change the font family to a sans serif font, such as Arial, with a backup of sans serif. I will text align center, increase the font size. In this project, I'm going to use REM instead of EM, because we'll be working with a lot of different font sizes. EM is the font size relative to the parent. REM is for the root. For this specific project, I'll stick with REM. And I will set the font weight to be bold. Let's style our button next. We are selecting our button. I'll increase the font size of the button to be 1.5 REM. I'll add a little bit of padding, 10 pixels by 15 pixels. I will set the border radius to round the corners, 10 pixels. Remove the border because it's ugly. Border none. Pick a background color for the button. I'll pick something blue, but I like using HSL values. Something like that looks good. I will change the font color to be white, and I will set the font weight to be bold. Not bad. When I hover my cursor over the button, I will change the cursor to be a pointer. Let's change the background color of the button when we hover over it. We are selecting the hover pseudo class of the button. Let's take our background color. I'll increase the lightness by 10%. So that should change when we hover over the button. Now when I click on the button, I'll increase the lightness even more to show that it's active. With our button, we will select the active pseudoclass. I'll set the lightness to be 70%. So when we click on the button, it should flash momentarily, which it is. Let's style the input element, because I can barely see it. With our input element, I need to scroll down. Let's increase the font size to 2 rem. I'll set a width of 150 pixels. Text align center. And font weight bold. With our HTML file, we do have 2 empty div elements currently. We'll style these at the end. Once we get our images to populate, we'll style that last. With the onClick attribute of the button, we set a function of roll dice. Now we need to define it. Within our JavaScript file, we will define a function to roll dice. We have a lot of constants to declare. I'll create a constant for the number of dice we would like. What's the value of this input element? I will define const num of dice. What is the number of dice we need to roll? Equals document.get element by ID. The ID of this input element is, I actually forgot. What was it? Oh, we didn't set an ID. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so for the input element, the ID will be num of dice. Num of dice. But I would just like the value. I will access the value of whatever this input element is. For the next constant, we're going to get the dice result. This empty div section. Const dice result equals, let's copy this line of code, but we don't need the value. We just need that ID, dice result. Then let's do this with dice images. So we can copy this, paste it, const dice images. The ID was dice images. I'll create 2 empty arrays. Const values. This will be an empty array. We'll store all of the dice rolls, the numbers. Then we'll need an array of images. Const images. This will be for the images of the dice. At this point in time, we're going to create a for loop that will loop once for every dice that we roll. We have to generate a random number between 1 and 6 for each dice we're rolling. If I'm rolling 3 dice, I need a for loop to iterate 3 times. Let's create a for loop. Let I equal 0. Continue this as long as I is less than the number of dice. Then increment I by 1. During each iteration, I need to generate a random number between 1 and 6. I'll store that within a constant. Const value, that will be the random number, equals math.random method. This generates a random number between 0 and 1, but I'm going to multiply it by 6 to give us a random number between 0 and 5. It's not going to be a whole number though, so I'm going to round it using math.floor. Then enclose this part of our equation. Now we should get a random number between 0 and 5, but I need a random number between 1 and 6, so I'll add 1 to the end. Plus 1. So now we'll get a random number between 1 and 6. Just to be sure that this all works, temporarily, I'm going to console.log our value. If I roll 1 dice, we should get 1 random number. 1. Let's try 3 dice. 5, 4, 6. 3, 2, 4. Alright, we don't need this console.log statement anymore. We know that it's working. With these values, I'm going to push them into our array of values. Take our array of values, use the push method, add our value that we randomly generate during each iteration. And let's see if this works. I'm going to console.log my array of values, just to be sure that there's some numbers in there. Let's roll 4 dice. inspect, console. I have an array of 4 elements, the number 6, 3, 2, 6. So that does work. All right, here's the tricky part. I need to take my array of images, use the push method. I will create a string representation of an HTML element. I need to get one of the images found within this Dice Images folder. Using angle brackets, I will create an image element. I will set the source equal to that folder name. So my folder name was dice_images. Dice_images / So with my images, it might be different for you. Mine are labeled appropriately, for 1, 2 for 2, 3 for 3, so on and so forth. I will use a placeholder, add our value, this number, then follow this with the file extension of the images. My images are PNG images. Do pay attention to that. After we exit this for loop, we should have an array of HTML images. Then we're going to take our dice result constant, change the text content to equal all of the values. I'll use a template string. I will display the word dice, add a placeholder. I'm going to join all of the elements together, all of the values. To do that, you can take your array of values, use the built-in join method, and I will join them all by a certain character or characters. I will join all of these numbers by a comma and a space. Let's see if this works. I'm going to roll 1 dice. Yep, dice. I rolled a 1. I rolled a 4. I rolled a 3. Let's roll 2 dice. I have 2, 5, 4, 6, 2, 2, 3, 6, 3, 2. Then we have to get the images. Let's take our dice images constant, access the inner HTML, set this equal to, take our array of images, use the built-in join method. I'm not going to join them by any character. I'll join them by an empty string. And let's see if this works. I would like 1 dice. Yeah, there it is. 2 and 3. Now, for some reason, if your dice isn't displaying, with our image element, I will set the alt attribute to equal a string of dice space, add a placeholder, value. Let's say I get the folder name wrong. I will rename this as dice image. I'll attempt to display 1 dice. Dice 3, dice 4, dice 3. So in case our image can't display for some reason, we'll at least display the alternative text. This is good for troubleshooting and for screen readers for accessibility. Let me correct the name of the folder again. So with our dice images, at least for me, they're kind of big, and I'd like to space them out a little bit. Our last step is we're going to go back to our CSS style sheet. I will select the ID of dice result. That's going to be for this title right here. I'll add some margin around this text. Right now it's kind of compressed. I will set margin of 25 pixels. Then with our dice images, ID dice images, with my ID of dice images, take each child image, set a width of 150 pixels should be good. Yeah, they're a lot smaller now. I'll add a little bit of margin too. Margin, 5 pixels. Yeah, that's not a bad looking program. All right, everybody, so that was a dice roller program you can make using JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Impress your friends. And that's pretty much it. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So in today's lesson, we're going to create a project where we generate random passwords. This will help us solidify our understanding of functions and random numbers. This will be an exercise for beginners. By setting different options, we can change the format of the password. And well, let's begin, everybody. All right, let's begin. We'll need to let our program know what the length of our